And now, Knock 2 Studios presents Common Censored.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Common Censored. I'm Lord Sterling, and this is episode 148. We've got a special guest joining us today, a candidate for U.S. House from Oklahoma, Mr. Andrew Hayes. We'll bring him on in a brief moment. First, let's run through the housekeeping type stuff. Make sure to join us Monday through Friday at 6:30-ish p.m. Eastern Time. A little bit of wiggle room there. We're starting early today. So thanks for being here, all of you censored commoners. Make sure to use hashtag CommonCensored when you share the broadcast on X, where you can find us at _CommonCensored. If you want to support the broadcast, you can head on over to commoncensored.locals.com and subscribe for 5 smackers a month to keep Loki's belly full of treats and the studio lights blinded me. You can also head on over to Amazon and scoop up one of our books, our eponymous Common Censored, where we took Thomas Paine's common sense and redacted the hell out of it, rendering all substance impossible to glean, begging the question, is a revolution against tyranny even possible when the commons is suppressed and dialogue between people is made impossible? You can also pick up the unredacted version if you want to know what actually galvanized the colonies in favor of independence against Britain. Make sure to also check out alplama.com, your new herbal health guru with tinctures to remedy all your ailments. Make sure to chat with Mama Mac and the team over there, and they'll help you figure out something to ease whatever is bothering you. Links to all of the content that we covered today, articles and videos and everything, will be in the description after the broadcast, as well as timestamps, so that if you're watching this later and you need to focus your attention and energy onto, to maximize efficiency, you can look at the timestamps, jump right to the topics that are interesting to you. Disclaimer: views expressed on Common Censored are only opinions. Assume everything we say is false and research for yourself. We're not giving medical, legal, or financial advice. The only advice we are giving is think for yourself. Question authority. Think for yourself. Question authority. So let's bring in our guest. Oh, it looks like we just lost him right at the moment I was bringing him in. Oh, he'll be back in a second. We're having a little bit of connectivity issues today. While we're waiting for him to join us, let's hop over to his website. For the people, by the people, of the people. This is Andrew Hayes, Republican in Oklahoma, running for the U.S. House of Representatives. End inflation, restart prosperity, save America. I happened to run into him on X the other day. And Gator, must be a knot in the string between the cans. Exactly, Gator. They definitely don't want him joining us today, because Mr. Andrew Hayes is indeed the type of candidate that we do need in office in times like these. He is, as like I am, a fan of Dr. Ron Paul, Dr. No, the modern day Thomas Jefferson. He also is a fan of Ludwig von Mises, as we learned yesterday, as he joked, telling us to check out, what's the name of the book? Ludwig's 4-part treatise on Austrian economics. As a primer, jokingly, he told us. Um, I'm sure we'll get him back in a split second. We have 1 month, 1 week, 3 days, 6 hours until his election down in Oklahoma. Make sure to come check out his website. His issues, campaign platform, ending inflation. Price inflation is a direct result of monetary inflation. That's right. They've changed the definition of inflation to distract from the actual cause by calling price inflation inflation. But as Mr. Hayes knows, it's not the prices that are the actual inflation. A rise in prices is the result of what inflation actually is, which is an increase in the monetary supply, printing more dollars, i.e., let me send a message real quick and see what's going on. He might be hopping over to the closest spot with Wi-Fi, which that was the plan. If we disconnected live, he was going to jump over to the nearest Starbucks, which might take a couple minutes. But we'll run through his platform here while we're waiting. And if it takes longer than that, we'll hop into a little bit of news before we get him back. So let's zoom and enhance over here so you guys can see as well. Price inflation is a direct result of monetary inflation. To put an end to inflation, we need to shut down the Federal Reserve, whose sole function is creating money out of thin air. We need a stable dollar, and we need a sound dollar. Yep, that's right, Mama Mac. He's got a kick-ass hat. Looks like he's down on some kind of ranch in Oklahoma or something, broadcasting from out in the wilderness. I don't know if you guys will be able to see his backdrop now, but we'll get him back on as soon as possible. So his next issue on his platform is the First Amendment. Freedom of speech is under attack from all quarters. He says the left is using censorship like never before, hence our title, Common Censored, as the commons itself is being censored. Very dangerous in a republic, arguably not a republic anymore, with factors like that. The left is using censorship like never before, and even Tom Cole has joined in by voting to shut down an entire platform, going after TikTok, violating private property rights, and the ability to function in the economy. Pretty crazy stuff. Even if you don't like the message, we have to all agree that we are able to speak freely and share our positions and debate the veracity and validity of the various positions that we each have. As he continues, this is unacceptable and un-American. The responsibility of monitoring the social media activities of children lies with parents. He further goes on to talk about the 10th Amendment. And this is a big one, too. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited to it by the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. In other words, if it's not listed in Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution that delegates powers to Congress, it's not a power that Congress has. And so what we're seeing now is the federal government for decades, and this has been going on a long, long time, they are overreaching beyond their constitutional limitations of power when these powers are supposed to be specifically reserved for the states and to the people, hiding behind the necessary and proper. And the general welfare clause isn't going to cut it. If the power isn't granted to the federal government in the Constitution, then the federal government can't do it. Period. This is exactly the type of candidate that we need. Foreign affairs. I am a champion of peace and free trade, he says. We should have revenue generating tariffs that benefit competitive American industry as well as the American consumer. That sounds very interesting. I'm interested to hear his take on that, which we will get as soon as he gets to a Wi-Fi zone. He continues, I am not just America first. I am America first and only. Booyah! No money for overseas, I'm guessing. And I agree. There's no reason when we're in debt that we should be borrowing and sending money overseas for causes of other countries, even if we weren't in debt. Why would we do that? Why would we do that? There's no moral justification of taking American taxpayer money and using it to benefit anybody but Americans, as we learned from the article about Davy Crockett over at FEE, Foundation for Economic Education.org, the article titled Not Yours to Give. If you're going to take our taxpayer money, it better be used to benefit us and not some private cause and some foreign cause. Totally crazy. So let's jump into the news for a few minutes while we're waiting for Mr. Hayes to get back to us. He'll be joining us as soon as he gets to a Wi-Fi location. Let's see. Let's start with something funny that's not really news, but is just an interesting little thing to show. The strongest man in the universe. Check this out.
You never heard about the mighty Atom?
No.
Hallelujah, man. This guy, 130 pounds, strongest man in the world. People go, yeah, right. 12 pennies, he'll bite in half, right straight through. Give him a horseshoe.
Bite in half
or
pennies?
Form you want to have it. The question mark. Joel Greenstein, the mighty Atom. Police says, we came there to save the crowd from him, not to save him from the crowd.
I'm not
Bit
locked in
through
here
nails,
with you.
broke
You're locked
chains,
in here with
held
me.
down an airplane with his hair. But single-handedly beat up 20 Nazi sympathizers. Wow.
They shot him in his forehead because the guy was in love with his wife and didn't penetrate his skull.
What the fuck?
And they go to a dentist and he checks out his teeth, and while he's doing it, he bites the metal thing in his mouth, bites it in half. And the guy writes about it. What are you going to do against a guy like that?
Look at how cut he is, man. That's bananas. He's not the only person to get shot in the head, and the bullet didn't penetrate his skull either. Tupac Shakur, interestingly, was shot in the back of the head twice, I believe, and neither bullet penetrated his skull. So some people just have super hardcore, thick skulls, I guess. Pretty crazy. Let's check this out. We got some interesting news breaking from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. just a little bit earlier today. Dear President Trump, I'm grateful to you for calling attention to the rigged polling methodologies that biased DNC-influenced media have used against you. We have this concern too, and I'm happy to show you the deceptive methodologies used by DNC-allied pollsters who pretend that I'm in single digits. You have correctly characterized these as fake polls. This is why we did our own poll with Zogby, the largest and most accurate poll of this election cycle. We had Zogby ask about head-to-head matchups. 1, Trump versus Biden. 2, RFK Jr. versus Biden. 3, RFK Jr. versus Trump. The results? Trump beat President Biden handily. RFK crushes him as well by even more, and against each other, RFK writes, I beat you, Trump, in a nail-biter. Whoa, that's crazy. In a three-way, you are ahead, but I'm coming up strong. 2 new polls, CNN and Quinnipiac, have me above the 15% debate threshold. Another, ActiveVote, has me at 26% among young voters, and you and I are tied among America's 70 million independents. I'm also drawing a lot of viewers from your former supporters. They are upset that you blew up the deficit. I'm sure Mr. Hayes has something to say about that. Shut down their businesses during COVID and filled your administration with swamp creatures. That's right. We don't want to see him in bed with a goblin. You know, kissing goblins in bed with, remember that Alex Jones song? So, I'd like to make you an offer, RFK Jr. writes. We're both going to be speaking at the upcoming Libertarian Convention on May 24th and 25th. It's a perfect neutral territory for you and me to have a debate where you can defend your record for your wavering supporters. Ooh, he's challenging Trump to a debate. What do you think? What do you guys think? I think it would be great. We need RFK Jr. to publicly school Trump on the jib-jabs and related topics so that we have some progress, because Trump needs to get over this this adherence and loyalty to Operation Warp Speed and the jab. It's bad. Continuing, you yourself have said you're not afraid to debate me as long as my poll numbers are decent. Well, they are. Should I be reading this in the RFK Jr. voice? In fact, I'm the only presidential candidate in history who has polled ahead of both major party candidates in head-to-head races. Oh, sounds like we got our guest back. You caught me right in the middle of doing my RFK voice. Welcome back, Mr. Hayes. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. I was excited the second that I saw you retweeting Ron Paul and talking about the Mises School, the Austrian School of Economics. I knew that this guy is the kind of candidate that we need in office. Everybody, give a warm welcome to our guest, Andrew Hayes from Oklahoma. How's your week going?
Doing good. How are y'all doing?
Not bad, not bad. I like the hat. We got some comments in the audience as well who love the hat. So, how did you decide that it was your time to run?
So there were a lot of factors that came into it. People ask me why I'm running, and man, I tell you what, it just kind of depends on what day of the week it is and what kind of mood I'm in. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of Tom Cole and him voting our dollars overseas. The inflation is killing us, and he even puts that at the top of his list of issues. He knows enough to know that people in Oklahoma care about inflation, but he doesn't know the first thing of what to do to stop it. And Ron Paul does, and I do.
Absolutely.
I listen to Ron Paul. So
three words.
That's
the 3 words. And the Fed. Right?
Yeah, and you know what? It's really just about bringing the revolution back to life and being a voice. Somebody's got to do it, and you're doing it. Here's one small thing. Tucker Carlson had Ron Paul on his show. And,
oh my God! I was so excited.
Did you miss that?
I saw it. It was great.
Yeah. Let the man talk.
Yeah.
They had like a 2-hour dialogue on the Carlson show, and man, let me tell you what, that's big. That lit a fire in me, and I'm like, yeah, like now's the time. If there was ever a time to run and to talk about the Federal Reserve,
Yep.
You know, it was probably in '08, but now's a good time too.
Yeah, for sure.
Because, man, can you imagine if Ron Paul had won and abolished the Fed and all the policies that Ron Paul talked about, we wouldn't be in this mess right now. Do you think that Ron Paul or his successor would ever have allowed the shutdown or the mask mandates or anything like that?
No way.
Well,
not a chance.
I mean, you know what? On one hand, it would have happened possibly in New York because we do believe in states' rights, right?
Yeah.
But
the question is, though, aren't the states bound to follow the amendments as well? Individual rights. When they signed on to the federal Constitution, the federal government, they're agreeing to protect those rights as well. So there are states' rights, but I would argue that the states don't have the right to violate the individual rights in the process of exercising their state rights. What do you think about that?
So that's not the way that Jefferson and Madison saw it. It wasn't until the new Constitution of 1868 that states weren't allowed to infringe on the Bill of Rights.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they could have done it, but I think that we always talk about whether or not politics is downstream from culture, or if culture is downstream from politics, and it kind of flows both ways, right?
Yeah.
I think that if we had a Ron Paul presidency, that the culture would have shifted, and the people wouldn't have put up with that kind of garbage.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing. But no, I mean, states. That's where the power lies. It is power to the people. And you know what? If California wants to do stupid stuff, then the Constitution allows for that.
Right. That's the whole purpose is 50 individual laboratories of experimentation where the cream of the crop rises to the top. States that have good policies draw new residents, tourism, business. And basically, if the floundering states with the bad policies are forced to follow suit and put in good policies to bring business and people back to their states, competition is the essence of free market and in promoting quality laws and social policies as well. I think that that the principles of the free market could carry over into government when employed as originally designed with the U.S. Constitution. Tom Woods, I'm sure you're familiar with Tom Woods as
Very
well.
much so. I was in,
Yep.
and I guess I'm still in his elite group. Yeah, I'm still in his elite group. He had an elite group on Facebook, and during COVID, it got moved over to MeWe, an alternate
Oh, all right.
social media site, and I am one of the Tom Woods elite. So yeah, Tom
Imagine
Woods,
my shock. Right.
right?
Yep.
But in my website hayes4house.com, I don't think it says this, but I'm a veteran. I'm a fifth generation Okie. Um, yeah, so I don't know.
And you served in the National Guard, you said, right? In
Yes,
artillery?
sir. Yeah.
Fascinating. Fascinating. I was doing I'm working on a novel / screenplay hybrid series called The Core Saga, which takes place right after the Roswell incident. And I wrote this scene recently taking place at Los Alamos National Laboratory, where the UFO actually is attacking the facility. And I had to do a lot of research on anti-aircraft artillery for writing that scene. So that's what made me think of when you mentioned artillery. So I want to know, I'm curious, have you always been awake, or was there an awakening process for you? And if
Yeah.
so, when
Yeah.
was that?
So in probably 06, 07, somehow I accidentally stumbled on the Mises Institute online.
Nice.
Started reading their stuff, and then Ron Paul happened.
Yep.
I still had a little bit of neocon tendencies. We were always There's always an element that was localist, but at the same time, the terrorists, they had to die, right?
Right.
And my wife, we were dating at the time. I actually met my wife at a Ron Paul sign waving event.
That's the best. Oh man.
I've got to digress and tell you this story real quick. Me and
Please
my
do.
cousins, it's 2 days before Christmas. We're going down to the bookstore, DVD, music store, whatever it is. It's Hastings, and they're out of business these days. But
Oh, no.
yeah, it happens. So we're going into town and going to this Hastings bookstore, music store, and of course, I'm 23. My cousins are all either teenagers or in their early 20s. And so we all have to take our own vehicle. And I'm last in line, and they drive right past these Ron Paul people. And I see my wife, and I'm like, oh, she looks pretty good. So I turn in, and I go and meet her, and we end up going to Brahms and eating ice cream. And yeah, I was late for Christmas that day. I got a call, said, "Hey, where are you at?" And yeah, so we've been together ever since. And gosh, what
That's
were we
the
talking
best, man.
about?
We were talking about your awakening process.
She tells me, yeah. So she tells me, like, I'm like, yeah, but we got to do something about these terrorists overseas. And Katie says, well, fine, but how are you going to do that? Because wars take taxes. And it's like, well, duh. We can't do it then. I don't want to be taxed for it. Like,
right, yeah.
It's terrible to say, but I was still somewhat of a war hawk in the early days of the Ron Paul movement, and so I'm fine with dropping bombs on people, but I don't want to pay for those bombs. Like, like, what are we doing here? No, you can't have my money.
Right.
So that was actually the catalyst of how I kind of started to flip, and now I'm a Ron Paul guy through and through. It's just not our business. We do need to take care of America first, and you can't really use this as a campaign slogan because people don't get it. But instead of America first, it should be America last, right? America first and last. Like after we take care of ourselves and secure the border, then we should just do nothing. How about
Boom. Yeah.
that?
So it's America first and last. Once we finish taking care of our own stuff, we don't send any money overseas. Unless it's, fair trade that we're doing. But why are we giving away money? It doesn't make any sense. Like even Ben Shapiro said, Israel can take care of herself.
Did
we
he
don't
really
see that
say-
happening. He did. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
There's video of it.
And
Yep.
you know what? So for the people, and there's still a lot of people in the Republican Party that want to die on that hill of Israel, and it's like, look, do you believe in Israeli sovereignty? Okay, you do. Well, to have Israeli sovereignty, they've got to stop taking our money, because as long as
Yeah.
they're taking our money, they're not sovereign.
Right. They're not independent.
Right?
Seems
So,
pretty simple.
they're not. They're absolutely not. They're looking over their shoulder to see what the U.S. will and won't let them get away with. They need to be
And
on
vice
their
versa.
own, make their own decisions. Yeah, and they need to live and die with those decisions.
Yep, and that's the essence of independence and freedom, right? Individual
Yeah.
responsibility. Even when it comes to nations, that's the difference between nationalism and globalism, the autonomy of nations living and dying by their own decisions. Just like an extrapolation, a fractal of individual responsibility.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, oh man, I'm so jealous. I wish I met a girl at a Ron Paul rally. If where do you go to date? Do you go to the library? Do you find women? Do you go to the grocery store? Ron Paul rally. That's the number one place. If there were Ron Paul rallies right now, I'd be trolling. I'd be trolling so hard for women. Oh man.
Yeah.
So-
and she's still libertarian. I mean,
Nice,
I haven't
nice.
changed my views at all, but I rejoined the Republican Party. I got involved with a local race. A longtime friend of mine ran for state senate. His name is Dusty Devers. You might have seen him on the Tonight Show where they made fun of him.
Oh man, I don't think I saw it. That's a cool name though, Dusty Devers.
Yeah. So anyway, so I got involved with that, and so I met some of the Republicans, the county chair, and the people in the Republican Party here in my county, and realized, okay, wait a minute, these are not Karl Rove, George Bush type people. These are kind of Ron Paul people, and the truth is that
Oh no! Oh no! We lost him again. You guys might remember, if you're old enough, that when Ron Paul was running, there was this thing called Google Trends. And you could look at Google Trends and you could track the number of Google searches that people execute for various topics. And you could juxtapose it to media coverage of those topics. And the way he's describing politics being downstream from culture or vice versa, I think that if Ron Paul, because Ron Paul was a politician and he was doing his thing and he was having an effect on the culture. Andrew Breitbart famously said that culture is, politics are downstream from culture. That it's the culture that drives the politics. But when you have somebody like Ron Paul or somebody like Trump, it actually can reverse, and you can have the politicians influencing the people and influencing the culture. So as searches on Google for Ron Paul were going and getting bigger and bigger and bigger and skyrocketing, his coverage on media was inversely proportional, tanking with a giant media blackout to prevent anybody from being able to hear Ron Paul's message. If he had one, it would have been a huge, huge difference. He often used the metaphor for spending and printing money, that comparing it to a heroin addiction, where you have two different ways to quit heroin. You can quit cold turkey and suffer the withdrawals, or you can wean off, try to do it, but it probably won't work. You just keep using it forever. So what he would have done is end the Fed, make us cold turkey quit inflation effectively. There would have been big economic fallout as a repercussion, but proper allocation of funds would have occurred. The big banks would have gone down, the car companies would have gone down, but they would have been bought up and had those dollars reallocated in the market appropriately by individuals making the best decisions for the money, and we'd be on an upswing right now. During the comeback, it would have been a rough 15 years, but we'd be on the upswing right now, guaranteed. Hopefully Mr. Hayes is able to get back on. This is to be expected nowadays with the whole digital systems and technical problems that come along with it. So we will wait for him to return. Let's jump into some more news in the meantime. We have the end of an era, interestingly, as the Boy Scouts have fully now submitted to the woke agenda. End of an era. Boy Scouts of America officially changes its name to embrace inclusivity. After 114 years of being about boys, you just can't have any gendered language at all anymore. The woke virus continues to spread in America. The Boy Scouts of America has announced a major rebranding as it transitions to Scouting America. Wow. This is crazy. Marking the first name change in its 114-year legacy. That's right. They're taking traditions in this country and just subverting and destroying everything that they can get their hands on. From entertainment, where they take properties like Star Wars and put a chick in it, make her gay, make it extra lame. Or when they take the dollar and destroy that, they're taking all of our sacred American institutions that built the culture and built the system that lit the pathway for everybody else, and they're shutting it down and subverting it in every way they possibly can. Sounds like South Park. Yes, sir, Scoutmaster. Yeah, they're South Park's gonna have to do an episode about this, right? Super, super crazy. So the move is part of the organization's bid to distance itself from its troubled past, marred by a torrent of sexual abuse claims and subsequent bankruptcy, while simultaneously embracing inclusivity. How about we don't need gender inclusivity in an organization called Boy Scouts, right? So they're just erasing that and remolding it in their own image, kind of like that J.R.R. Tolkien quote, who said that something like evil cannot create; it only takes over and destroys other people, smart people's creations effectively. I don't remember the exact quote, but that was big when Rings of Power was coming out on Amazon. Another American, classic that has been, bastardized at this point. Gateway Pundit reported that the organization was nearly bankrupt after a series of woke decisions, including changing its policies to allow gay leaders and allowing girls to join. Maybe, I don't know. That doesn't sound like a good idea, especially when you have San Francisco men's choirs singing about how they're coming for your children and they're going to be grooming them and everything. Maybe it's not a great idea to have scoutmasters who are attracted to males being in charge of a group of young boys. Probably not a good idea. That sounds crazy to me. Those decisions had a major impact on the organization's bottom line. So that's crazy. Let's jump to our next topic. We've got Judge Cannon. Judge, is it Aileen or Eileen? How does she pronounce it? Do you guys know? Anyway, Judge Cannon has postponed a key deadline in the classified documents case against Trump after Jack Smith admits to evidence tampering. Remember, they grabbed those pallets full of boxes that had not yet been at Mar-a-Lago, manipulated the documents, then shipped them off to Mar-a-Lago as part of the setup. Judge Eileen Cannon on Monday night postponed the coffee. I start drinking coffee on an empty stomach. It makes me burp. What can I say? But man, it's good. 8 o'clock, hazelnut coffee. Chef's kiss. Wow. Judge Aileen Cannon on Monday night postponed a key deadline in the classified documents case after special counsel Jack Smith admitted to tampering with evidence. Cannon temporarily stayed a May 9th deadline for President Trump and his co-defendants Walt Nauta and Carlos de Oliveira related to CIPA. Julie Kelly reporting on this. Let's hop over to her X. New, based on new revelations of evidence disruption and potential tampering, Judge Cannon has postponed a key deadline in classified docs case. This is related to special guidance, CIPA, in classified docs matters. She is done with Jack Smith's game-playing paperless order, temporarily staying SIPA, Section 5, Rule 16, expert disclosure on second set of pretrial deadlines / hearings to follow. Signed by Judge Aileen M. Cannon. Julie Kelly continues, this is in direct response to a filing today by Trump's lawyers that argued disclosures by special counsel Jack Smith proves the government did not preserve the integrity of the boxes seized during the Mar-a-Lago raid. That's right. They were moving documents around, taking things out, putting things in, possibly. Totally crazy. Totally crazy. A copy of the letter Trump's lawyers sent to Jack Smith about special counsel's confession that evidence is not in its original form, and something the lead prosecutor, Jay Bratt, erroneously attested to in court last month. It's crazy how chain of custody just means nothing all of a sudden. When it comes to this case, when it comes to the elections, we have proof down in Arizona and elsewhere that chain of custody was just completely obliterated, and they're doing nothing about it. Looks like we've got Mr. Hayes back with us. Howdy. Good to see you.
Hey, sorry about that. All right, we went from in the field to in the driveway to now we're in the house.
Don't let the wife beat you as a result, right?
I'm gonna pay for it later. So yeah.
It'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. Welcome back. Good to see you. So we've talked about some of your positions. What else do you want to talk about? We talked a little bit about end the Fed. We talked about the 10th Amendment. How about the First Amendment? You want to get into some First Amendment stuff?
I mean, it's like I think I have it written in there. I don't know, but yeah, what I've said about free speech is that's the first hill I'll die on. It's got to be the most important thing, and I can sit down and talk with people. I've sat down and talked with an actual socialist. We sat down and drank some beers together. You don't find many socialists in my neck of the woods, but this guy he's all the way. He's a Marxist. He's read Marx and he likes it. I don't think he really understands it though. But
right,
we sit down and we talk about every issue there is, and he made a comment that Mr. Hayes, he's a younger guy. He's just 20. He calls me Mr. and everything, but he says, well, Mr. Hayes, you don't get upset over any of this stuff. And I've never seen anybody do that. Everybody gets upset. And I'm like, yeah, I don't get upset about it because we can still talk about it. We can still talk about it. We can still reason about it. But, when what I do get upset over and what I do get a little bit belligerent over is censorship and people wanting to take away free speech. That's when I get a little bit hot-headed and everything, because the reality is if we can't reason as civilized men, then we're going to fight as savage men.
Yeah,
And
100%.
so that's my. I mean, that's when we start having to debate whether or not somebody can speak. Yeah, I get kind of belligerent because the if we lose that debate, then I guess it's going to come to blows, and
Yeah, right.
that's how it works out, you
First
know.
Amendment gets struck, move on to Second Amendment. It's right next in line.
That's
Unfortunately.
that's the idea. I think that's the idea is that we should work out our differences through reasoning, and it's frustrating, and for the people on the left, it makes sense. I can understand why they want to do it because their ideas suck. All right, but
Yeah.
people, the people on the right that want to shut down debate because it's anti-Semitic, quote unquote.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
man, hey, look, that's uh, that's not the way you want to go. The way to beat bad ideas is with good ideas, not with a stick,
Absolutely.
right? So,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm First Amendment to the hilt. You've heard of Murray Rothbard, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Definitely.
the Ethics of Liberty, page 113 through 121. I don't even recommend the whole book to people because it'll make their head explode. But he does talk about free speech, and it comes down to property rights, really, right? Um, that I can say what I want to say on my property. If
Yep.
you come onto my property, you don't get to say what you want to say because you're
Yep.
on
You don't
my
have
property.
rights. Yep.
Yeah, and
You're
the whole thing gets muddled when we have government-owned property because government property belongs to everyone and it belongs to no one, right? And so it gets
right.
really
It's so
tricky.
weird. What do you think
Yeah, it
about
gets
that?
really
About the federal government purchasing vast swathes of land and having like federal parks and things like that? What's your opinion on the feds owning big chunks of land in various states?
I'm against it. That's we should sell the land. Um, whether or not we sell it all tomorrow or if we sell sell incrementally over the next 50 years. I don't really care. I think it should all be sold. You know, so um,
How about
that's
Trump's new idea to make a series of new freedom cities? What do you think about that?
it's pretty goofy. Um,
I
I don't know.
like
That's it's one of those
I like
things.
what.
Like, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry. No, my bad.
I mean, let's wait and see. But all you have to do is look back to history. The reason why Houston became the city that it is because they didn't have regulations. Houston
No
started out
zoning
as a
laws.
yeah, and they just exploded. And
Yep. That's
you know,
freedom.
I've gone around and around with my local mayor about he wants to bring in business and this and that. And I'm like, listen, what we need a free city. The way to attract people is to offer liberty. Lawton,
Absolutely.
Oklahoma could be a beacon um, in Oklahoma, in the state, if we would just get rid of all our goofy laws. You
Right?
know,
That's
you
what's holding everything back. You eliminate the regulations, all the red tape, economies will explode. Innovation will take hold. Nobody can afford to innovate right now because they have to spend so much money on lawyers and third parties and just navigating the regulations that they need to navigate to operate. You get rid of all that back to like a 1960s level of U.S. code, for instance. Like, was it Rand Paul who campaigned on that? He took out a chainsaw and sliced in half the stack of documents, or who was that? I don't remember. But the U.S. code
Malay.
basically. Oh, he had the chainsaw out in. But what
Yeah,
if
but
I
then
think
there
it
was
might have been
Malay down
Rand.
in Argentina. Yeah,
Ring, ring, ring. Yeah, that was hilarious. What do you think
yeah.
about him? Because at half the time he's like, "Afuera, we got to get rid of all these departments," and then he's like going over and kissing stones in Israel and bowing to foreign nations. It seems What are your thoughts on Javier Milei?
I'll be honest with you, I hadn't followed him a great deal. Um, the guy to listen to, I think, and I hope you don't mind me plugging other shows, but
Oh, not at all.
Bob Murphy.
Absolutely. Bob Murphy.
Bob
Not familiar.
Murphy,
Let's check it out.
You're familiar with Bob Murphy, right?
I don't think so.
So Bob Murphy is the greatest living economist on the planet today. Bob Murphy actually took human action and condensed it and took it from a post-grad reading level to more like probably a 10th, 11th grade reading level.
No way.
Yeah.
Human
yeah,
action,
and
just for viewers, is that Ludwig von Mises' 4-part treatise on Austrian economics that we mentioned yesterday, which is an advanced book, not an entry-level reading, as you jokingly suggested yesterday. So he
Right.
condensed it and dumbed it down to college level or high school level.
Yeah, right. I think so.
Nice.
Yeah, and so much of it is that Mises was writing in the 1920s and 30s, back when the reading level. Mises probably only wrote on a high school level too, but that was back in the 20s, and
Right. People were super smart.
yeah. Well, they hadn't been through as much government schooling as we have, right?
Right. Have you heard the name Kenny Hignite before?
No, I don't think so.
If you Google Kenny Hignite, you can look at this test, a 1954 elementary school civics test, and list the cabinet positions and the people who hold these positions at the present time. Give the names of the justices of the Supreme Court. Tell the provisions of each of the amendments of the Constitution. Goes through the list of the amendments. 99.9% of people today could not pass this elementary school civics test from 1954 that Kenny Hignite aced with a 98.5. Just shows you how far we've fallen in terms of basic civics education. But Bob Murphy, that you mentioned, looks like a good dude. Here is FDR's war against civil liberties. I'm sure you've got some strong opinions about FDR and his socialist takeover of the country. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah. So FDR was one of the 3 worst presidents we've ever had. Wilson is one of the others, and for the last one, we'll have to talk about that when I'm not running.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I'm 99% sure I know exactly who you're talking about.
Right,
The public's not ready yet for that type of analysis.
It's
all the
hard.
misinformation.
And the tough take is, that the Republicans, they see what the left is doing today, and they see how the left is trying to destroy education and dumb down the schools and manipulate children. They can see that happening in front of them, but it doesn't seem to occur to them that the left has been doing that for 150 years.
Right. Which is exactly what's chronicled in this book by Charlotte Thompson Iserby, former Assistant Secretary of Education, the Department of Education. The deliberate dumbing down of America covers the past 150 years, basically, of the American education system. And exactly that, the strategic, deliberate dumbing down of our population to create a society of workers and not thinkers. And that's what it comes down to. Thinking for yourself, questioning authority, critical thinking, using reason. Everything's all emotion-based now. That's like one of the main differences between the left and the right, is that the left's ideologies are based largely on emotion, whereas the right uses logic and reasoning to at least to some extent. What do you think about that dichotomy?
Yeah, well, so a great book that I've read is Jonathan Haidt's The Righteous Mind. Understand, I don't agree with him on everything. I don't know if I agree with him on half of what's in his book, but he talks about the guy talks about the ability to understand where the other side is coming from. So that's like next tier from what you're talking about. It I guess to emphasize the point that yes, the left feels, the right thinks, and then there's a next level that thinks not just about their own position, but thinks through why the other side thinks the way they do. To
Right.
say it's merely feelings is, I think, to do it in injustice. Feelings are
Right.
involved.
Oversimplification for sure.
Yeah, but and I'm not. Yeah, no, you're right. Feelings are definitely involved, but there is, and Jonathan Hyatt talks about that. He talks about how the emotional man is an elephant, and the rational man is on top of that elephant, and the elephant starts to go this way, and the man says, "I want to go this way." He doesn't
Hmm.
really want to go that way. His emotions are leading him, and his reasoning is creating a post hoc argument for why he wants to go that direction, right? And so it is emotion, but there is a logical man in there that we have to deal with. And I think if we can reach that logical man, then we can say, hey, we need to turn that elephant around and make it go the other way. Um,
Yep. Agreed.
so the minimum wage is kind of my whipping boy on this. Is it's really easy to understand why the left wants an increase in the minimum wage, right? That
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's almost obvious, but what they miss is the destruction that comes about by a minimum wage, and how it precludes people from getting started in a job. It precludes people from getting experience, and
Yep.
but you understand where they're coming from, and you understand the emotion behind where they're coming from. So you throw this at them. You say, "Look, if we raise the minimum wage to $20 an hour, then your wife, who's presently a housewife, she's going to go and get a part time job. It's $20 an hour. Who's going to pass on that kind of money, right?" And so, what does that do? That takes away a spot from a teenager with no experience,
Yep.
right?
Or a
So where does
homeless
that
guy
teenager?
down the street who needs to get a leg up on life again, just doing something simple, cheap to make a couple bucks. It
Right.
precludes homeless people from being able to work, even just to get a foothold. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't know that everybody points to drugs and mental health as the core cause of homelessness. So I don't know that. But what about somebody that just got out of prison? They've been
Right.
locked up for
Yeah.
10 years, and you get their application, and do you hire a suburban housewife? Who do you think is going to be more reliable? Who's going to show up on time? See, that's where you pay the discount. Um, you abolish the minimum wage, and the guy who's just coming out of prison, you say, you know what? Yeah, I'll hire you for $7 an hour,
Right. There
and
you go.
you give that guy a chance, right? And
Yep.
we don't get to do that, and it's like you talk to him and you ask him, okay, so a minimum wage. Would you support an exemption if a person was willing to sign a waiver and say, I'll work for less? Should a person have the freedom to work for less? And they're like,
Absolutely.
well, yeah, yeah, they should. Okay, all right. So see, we're making progress here, and I don't know. I really believe that that's probably my strength that very very few other people have is being able to reach across and to reason with the left and bring them over.
Boom.
So
That's exactly what we need. You and Vivek both are good at that.
yeah, and
What do you
and
think
you know
about
what,
Vivek?
man, Vivek, look, he's a modern politician. Um, we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. I'm a 1787 constitutionalist. He is a new constitutionalist, 1868, New Deal,
Woof.
Great Society. Yes, he's conservative for the age that we live in, and frankly, I think he's the strongest candidate. in the field. I think he's
Agreed.
got Trump's choice for VP. And if Trump, there is something I heard something about Trump maybe picking Marco Rubio. Man,
Oh God.
can you imagine? It's like why am I not going around with a Trump flag on my truck and a Trump T-shirts and hats and everything? Is because they're talking about him picking Marco Rubio.
It's
That's
unbelievable.
an anathema. Are you
Total
kidding me?
anathema.
Yeah, we can't. Like, who would ever thought? No, Vivek is the guy. Vivek
He's
is,
the only one.
I mean, like, short of Rand Paul, Thomas
Right.
Massey.
Right. People
Yeah,
that we
I
need
mean,
in the Senate. We can't pull people out of places that are important to put them in. Like Carrie Lake, also, she's running down in Arizona for Senate. We need her there. We need Ron DeSantis in Florida. We need Rand and Thomas Massey. Of course, you pick those two, the two like most constitutionalist people in the. Obviously, Rand is not quite on Ron Paul's level, but he's close enough to do some justice. Thomas Massey is unbreakable with his consistency of position and refusal to submit to compromise. So I'm not surprised you
right.
listed those two.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the guys, man. And that's another angle of why is able to choose to run. Can you imagine if Thomas? Can you imagine what Ron Paul went through when he filed to run for the House back in the day, and he was the only
1974.
yeah, is the only voice. Uh, Man, I'll be honest with you. I don't know that I would want to put myself through that, but
Right.
he established that beachhead, and we've got Rand Paul in the Senate. We've got Thomas Massey in the House. You've got a
Mm-hmm.
few people that I don't know. I don't want to talk bad about them, but I don't want to pretend like they're as strong as Ron Paul either. But Matt Gaetz and
Nobody is.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
we can bring those guys around, maybe, right? So
Yeah.
uh, there's hope, but the truth is that we still wouldn't have a majority. We still wouldn't be able to um, do an awful lot, and so it's a campaign to get the message out. And if I was to get elected, it would just be more of the same. It'd be getting the message out over and over again. That's the idea. Um, that's the main thing. And and by the way, hey, scroll back down to my issues. Can I
Yes,
look at
sir.
those again? I have
Absolutely.
like 10 of them. I have about probably 10 or 15, and my guy said, "Man, you can't have that many." You
Right.
know,
Right.
uh, yeah. Well, you lose people's attention span. But since we're a little bit more long form here, have you heard of jury nullification?
Absolutely. Tom Woods, big proponent of jury nullification, where the jury has the freedom of choice to decide whether or not a law should even be enforced. They can override the law if they think that the charges are not justifiable. Like
Right.
in the Whitey Harrell case with from America from Freedom to Fascism, where the judge wouldn't allow the law in the courtroom about that would require individuals to pay income taxes, and the jury basically
Well,
said we're not doing this, and they let him off. Whitey Harrell, I believe it was. What are your thoughts about jury nullification?
I mean, I'm going to try and get that. What I want to do is I want to have a link on the issues area for more, so you can click to more issues. Man, it would be a waste if we didn't talk about jury nullification.
Yes, sir.
It's a core Anglo-American liberty. I mean, this thing goes back 800 plus years to Runnymede, and
Oh
the
wow.
whole point of having a jury is for the jury to judge the law and the facts, because the king was instituting laws that were bad, and we wanted a
Right.
way to fight that. So we said we're going to have a jury trial. And it in our American system, the law starts with the people, with the people's representatives, and
Boom.
then it's enforced through the executive. Some poor fool is picked up. He's charged, and he's put on trial. And then guess what? It goes back to the people,
Back to the
back
people
to
for the final failsafe.
to say, yes, that law is just, and yes, he's guilty of that crime. Or, you know what? Yeah, he's guilty of not wearing a mask, but that's a BS law, and we're not going to enforce it.
Boom. And they do not want people to know about jury nullification. This is a topic that gets people suppressed big time. So that means we got to talk about it even more and push it out there and force it out into the public conversation. They do not like like when people talk about jury nullification, but that's right. The law starts with the people, the people's representatives, and then the jury is the final failsafe to as a check against tyranny. They have the freedom as a jury to say, there is this law, this person did violate this law, but this law is unjust. We are not going to enforce it.
Right. So what we need is, and here's the truth, is that the judge shouldn't have to tell the people. We should all know this.
Yep.
But that's not the case. So I would sponsor legislation to cause the judges in federal cases to inform the jury of their right to nullify laws that they deem to be unconstitutional.
Boom. Boom.
Yes, sir.
That's good stuff. See, this is what I'm talking about. All it took for me was those two posts that you did. I saw Ron Paul, I saw Mises, and I was like, this guy's on point. I know for sure this guy's going to know what's going on. So I noticed your email is at a Mises.com address. Are you affiliated with some type of Mises organization?
Well, yeah. So I'm a member of the Mises Institute. I don't want to misrepresent. You too can be a member of the Mises Institute if you send them a check for $60.
Nice.
So
that's cool. You get your own email and everything.
But way back in the day, 18 years ago in 06, 07, when I discovered them, I became a member. And back in those days, they gave you an email along with your membership. And
oh, cool.
Somehow I got really lucky. Maybe it's because they knew I was so awesome. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
They grandfathered me in and let me keep that. And so I'm one of the few people that's not an adjunct professor or some kind of big time scholar like Bob Murphy. And I still have the email. So
that's
I
legendary.
Wear that with pride. Yeah. Yeah. So,
that's so cool. I saw that and I was like, oh man, this is nuts. So badass. Let's talk about some more of your platform. I know you said you've got a bunch of issues that are restricted on the website, at least for now, to the top big 4. What else do you have on your list that you want to talk about? Jury nullification, perfect, beautiful topic. Everybody needs to be aware of it. What else is on your mind?
Oh, God. I don't know. I'm kind of drawing a blank. Y'all wouldn't believe
it happens.
this,
it's all good.
I'm not the world's best at public speaking and this sort of thing. So let me throw this out there. I mentioned that I'm a 5th generation Okie and a vet, but
yes,
another
sir.
thing I want people to know is, man, are you a big Lord of the Rings fan?
I wouldn't say like big, but I do love Lord of the Rings for sure. I haven't like read all the books. But I watched the movies recently. I like to rewatch them, every few years, and definitely big fan. What kind of comparison are you going to draw here?
Look, the ring is power, right? And government is power. I'm not running to gain power. Tom Cole is running to gain power or to hold power. What I want to do is I want to chain it. I want to restrain it. I want to bind it. And where it spills out of its proper channels, it needs to be abolished. It needs to be gotten rid of.
Absolutely.
Right?
1000%.
And I guess I bring that up. I'm a Christian. I think that I might have a different flavor of Christianity than most folks do. Most people who are Christian and run for office, they want godly laws and they want godly government. And my view is I mean, it sounds good. I don't know. Are you a believer?
I am not religious personally,
Gotcha.
but I
Yeah, I
am all
remember you
for the
saying that
First
yesterday.
Amendment and religious freedom. Just to clarify.
So, so you you might be a little bit more interested where I'm coming from. My thought
Yeah,
is that, um, and the thing is other Christians acknowledge this. They just don't give it the. I feel like they don't give it the proper way, and this is the doctrine of total depravity, that men are sinful, um, that men are prone to sin, that men are corrupt and they're prone to corruption, and of course power corrupts, and so and government is made of these men, right, who are sinful and uh, who tend to be easily corruptible. So you
yeah.
take all that, and the idea that I draw out of that is that government cannot be godly. It cannot be good. It can only be an evil, as Thomas Paine writes. It
It's
can
a
only
creation
be
of man.
well. It is. I think now uh, here's well, we're getting way deep into this now. Look, let's just focus on this, that
Sure.
government is an evil. Thomas Paine says that at its best, it's a necessary evil, and so it has to be bound. It has to be confined. We can't have a godly government, not because I don't want it, but because it's not a realistic thing,
Yep. Exactly.
right? Because if we try it, and we have tried it, look at the prohibition on alcohol that we tried 100 years ago, and the
Right.
disaster,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
Total disaster.
Yeah, we're not going to allow alcohol because it's sin and it's ungodly. But look at the hell that wrought and that it brought on our country. Um, let
At
me
least
tell
they
you,
passed an amendment, though. You know what I mean?
they did, and then they repealed it with an amendment. Thank God, you know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Big time.
but yeah, that's the idea, is that we we can't have all that government can do is to protect life, liberty, and property. Past that, we're only hurting ourselves to try to do
Yep.
anything else with government.
Right. And that's the purpose of government, as explicitly stated in the Declaration of Independence, that governments are instituted among men to protect those rights, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And they've gone above and beyond that to now trying to protect your safety. And like Benjamin Franklin
Oh
said,
yes,
those who would give away their liberty for safety deserve neither and end up losing both. Real quick, we've got Sam Duty in the chat. He's an Okie, and he wants to know how he can get involved.
yeah. I think you can sign up on the website hayes4house.com. There should be a place to sign up. There's definitely a place to donate, and I'm terrible at this. I think it says something about our system. I went and filed, and I'm like, all right, now what do I do? And they say, well, now you got to start asking people for money. I'm like, gee, that's kind of
I know it
crummy.
sucks, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
sucks.
It's like maybe we should find a different way to pick our leaders, because the guy that's good at panhandling maybe shouldn't be in office, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
and especially now with like the big super PACs and everything, you just have corporations dictating which candidates get the most support. There
oh,
needs to be
dude.
some type of intervention to bring the money power back to the people pushing their candidates.
Yeah, there really should. The idea there. Let me first just do the plug.
Do it up.
Hayes4house.com. Don't send me $1,000, man. Send me 5 or 10 or 50. Um, we're doing an online campaign. We're not making T-shirts and hats and just spending money because we have it. We're trying to actually reach people. We want people to go to the site, see the issues, and make their decision based on issues. I know this is um, probably still doomed to fail, because well, so many people are a result of the government school system, but
Right.
that's still the strategy we're going for here. But we
You
do need
miss every
some,
shot you don't take, though. So you got to take it.
right,
Got to
right.
take the shot.
Well, and we're gonna run. And again, I don't know that I'll run next time, but it's definitely a possibility. Um, we'll just have to see. But yeah, just $5 or $10. We're reaching people online and trying to make a difference that way. Um, and then we talk about what were you talking about money and politics? You want to talk about that a second?
Absolutely. Take it away,
Okay.
sir.
So look, Article 1, Section 2. You're really good. You might be able to pull that up, right?
Oh, yeah.
You have to scroll down into it a little bit. But man, there's a line in there. It says, "There shall be no more than one representative for every 30,000 people." I'm looking here. Yeah, okay. So I can't see it at all. Oh, why am I pointing to it? You can't see where I'm pointing.
Let's see.
Right? The number
30.
of
All right, here we go. The
Yeah.
number of representatives shall not exceed 1 for every 30,000, but each state shall have at least 1 representative, and until such enumeration shall be made, the state of New Hampshire shall be entitled to choose 3. Look how they spelled choose. CHUSE. Very interesting.
Yeah, well, okay, so right there, what it should say, because here's the truth, folks, is that the Constitution is good, but it wasn't handed down from God on high. This is not Holy Script here. It says the number of representatives shall not exceed 1 for every 30,000, nor be less than 1 for every 60,000. If it had said something to that effect, think about how our country would be different. If you had a representative whose constituency was 40 or 50,000 people, how much money would it take to win 15 or 20,000 votes?
Good question.
Let that sink in. I mean, you're talking about small town mayors and city councilmen, and they don't get endorsements from big pharma and Halliburton and unions and all these sorts of things because it's
Yep.
not needed, right? If we
Right.
follow the Constitution, and I get that technically speaking, our House membership is in line with Article 1, Section 2, but you cannot tell me that we are in line with the spirit of what it says, right? It's clear, and you go back to the debates and the discussions and the notes that Madison took during that convention, man, the anti-federalists, they were arguing for 1 representative for every 15,000 people.
Oh,
The
wow.
Federalists wanted 1 representative for every 80,000 people, right? And so they kind of compromised there at 30. But as you see, the trouble is it doesn't put any upper limit on our representation, and so we're in line. We're technically in line with what it's calling for, but nobody in that convention hall would have said, "Oh yeah, we're just going to have 1 representative for every 800,000 people."
Right.
That's it flies in
Crazy.
the face. It's not a republic. It flies in the face of democracy. It flies in the face of republicanism. Um, the fact that we live the way we do with this system is just, it's a shame to all of us. The Democrats should be for this. The Republicans should be for it. I talked to a Republican earlier today, brought this up. He said, "Well, wouldn't that add a lot of Democrats from these big left-leaning cities?" Like, yeah, it would. And from District 4, which is solid red in Oklahoma, we would send 26.
Damn. Is that for one
You know,
representative for every 30,000 or for 60,000 people?
right? For every 30,000, I think.
For
I
30,000.
don't know. Yeah, I
Yeah, they're
think so. I can
sabotaging
do
us.
the
We don't
math.
have accurate representation when our population increases and the number of reps don't increase to compensate to scale with that? How can
Right. So
one
we're
person be
talking
expected to represent
26 reps.
800,000? 26, nice.
It's not. Yeah, it's not a realistic thing. It's a joke, and we see that. That's why your congressman has a staff of approximately 13 to 15 people that talk to the constituents. And so that should be your
Crazy.
first clue, is that every one of those staffers really, and I'm not saying that they should, because they that need to be elected, but that kind of shows the workload of representing 800,000 people. You need, what is that, 15, 17? I mean, what an improvement that would be. So it 805,000 divided by 60,000, that's 13. See, so we're right there. If we had one for every 60,000, I would go for that.
Yeah, that'd
You
be
know,
great. I mean,
uh,
it's the same thing where centralizing power in a centrally planned economy doesn't work because a few people at the center of a massive network and web of things can't possibly keep track of everything and understand the intricacies of everything. They can't make decisions that are effective and efficient for the whole. Same thing applies with representatives. You can't represent 800,000 people. The only way you could accurately represent a group of people is if there are few enough people that you're representing where you can actually communicate with those people and understand how they're feeling. So,
yeah,
no taxation without representation. We're effectively getting no representation at this point, right?
man. Well, that's yeah. Our country, our House of Representatives is more akin to an oligarchy than to a uh, republic or a representative democracy. But you touched on
Yeah.
something else that I think is important, is taxation without representation. Um, it's funny to me. Tom Cole is supposed to be a historian. I don't see him putting any of that learning to work. Um, I'm an armchair historian. I don't hold any degrees. I went to OU for a little while. I had a good time, uh, but I just I had a fun time. But I also spent quite a while in the libraries. But I was reading on this idea of taxation without representation, and Benjamin Franklin stood up and he says, well, what we need to do is we need to send some delegates over to the parliament, and we need to have our own MPs, and then we'll have representation. Shocker, that got turned down faster than he could say it. Man,
Yeah, there you
Richard
go.
Henry Lee and George Mason, they weren't having any of it. They were like, no way. Because what they were talking about, what they wanted was home rule. They wanted the king to ask the government of Virginia for a tax, and for the people and their representatives in the Virginia House, or House of Burgesses, right? Um,
Hmm.
they wanted them to approve that tax. So that would be akin to the president asking for a tax, and then the state of Oklahoma saying, yeah, we'll give you the money for that. We'll raise that tax for you. But that's not what's
Interesting.
happening. We have the old British system of taxation from 2,000 miles away, and they're just saying, you're going to give us this money.
Right.
Our state legislature hasn't approved that. So
Interesting. Yeah,
we are still being taxed without representation, and I
absolutely.
don't know if this is in there or not, but I I absolutely am with Ron Paul. The income tax should be abolished, all of it,
Yep.
all of it.
100%. 100%. The income tax was only created in 1913 alongside the Federal Reserve to collect interest on the national debt that would be accrued upon the creation of the Federal Reserve, printing money that we borrow from the Fed. So and they trick us into volunteering to pay the income tax. Are you familiar with America from Freedom to Fascism, the Aaron Russo documentary?
No, I haven't heard that one.
Oh, it's great. It's what woke me up back in 2007. I watched it, and then I had a year where I was uninvolved, and the seed was just kind of planting and sprouting in my brain. And then within a week, the next year, a friend of mine introduced me to Ron Paul, Alex Jones, and Bernard von Nothaus, the founder of Liberty Dollar, the competitive currency designed to humiliate the Federal Reserve and protect people against inflation. So within a week, I learned about all those things and was just on the track after that, basically. But yeah, yeah, in America from. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was going to ask. Yesterday, you brought up a topic, and you asked me about it while I was cooking supper. What was that? The impending demise of America, and the failure of the dollar. Do you remember the question exactly?
Not exactly, but I mean, it seems like that's pretty inevitable at this point. What do you think about that? Do you think we're headed for economic disaster?
Yeah. So I'm not quite sure. Again, I would defer to Bob Murphy because Bob Murphy is the smartest economist alive today.
High
But
praise.
the way I understand it is that we have two different problems. One is the national debt, and two is our currency.
Yep.
The way I understand it, our debt can spiral out of control, and our currency and our currency still be okay, or it can go the other way where our currency collapses, but because of the currency collapse, our debt is okay. Um, they're linked, but they're not linked to the point where they both have to crash. For instance, what would happen if while we're ruining the debt, while we're spending this, just going into debt, if a state like Texas, maybe Oklahoma secedes, then that you would have the problem with the debt, but Oklahoma would. I don't necessarily think that we would have to fall. Here's the important idea either way is that the union is built with 50 life rafts already in the mix, right? So, and I don't care. If I lose votes here, that's okay. I'm just trying to plant the seed and get the idea out. But at some point, and we kind of talk about this with representation. Where are you from anyway? You're on the East Coast.
Yeah, I'm in Connecticut. Yep, deep blue, Azure, Connecticut, behind enemy lines, and FEMA region #1.
Wow. Whoa, that's crazy.
The Constitution state. Yeah, I'm in the middle of it.
That's hilarious.
Right, yeah, the Constitution state. Sure, where we don't even have sheriffs anymore. Go ahead, sorry.
Here, let me run this by you. Some Oklahoma trivia. You have any idea what the population of Oklahoma is?
I do not. I know virtually nothing about Oklahoma.
4 million.
4 million?
We have 4 million people in Oklahoma.
Wow.
Yeah. So, do you know what the population of the United States was in 1790?
Oh my God, 1790? Probably like a million? Like something like that. What was it?
3.9 million.
3.9
million.
So you got the entire U.S. in Oklahoma at this point relative to then.
But they were independent. The United States in 1790 was an independent union of sovereign states. And why shouldn't Oklahoma?
Oh no, we lost him again. We'll have to.
No.
Oh, here he is.
Here I am.
He's back. We got him. So why shouldn't Oklahoma? That's where you cut up.
Well, yeah, I thought I was getting censored there, but why shouldn't Oklahoma be independent? Why shouldn't Texas and Connecticut and so many of these other states be independent.
Absolutely. They all should be independent. We only changed from 50 sovereign states with a federal government to ease trade and make sure no states gang up on each other, basically, to the modern centralized nation state as a result of the Civil War and tyrannical actions taken by the executive at that point, overriding states' autonomy. I'm sure you're aware Madison was vehemently in favor of states having the right to secede. If the federal union is voluntary to join, that means you have to be able to leave as well. Otherwise, you're in a tyranny and you don't have sovereignty. What are your thoughts about the modern nation state and states' rights to secede?
Man, that's the whole point of what I'm driving at is that, and I'm not arguing that right now Oklahoma just needs to secede, but it's an idea that we need to bring back into mainstream thought that we are not one nation indivisible. In fact, we
Right.
are a union of sovereign states, and
Yep.
so
And
yeah,
that ability to
it's
secede is a check against federal power, because if the feds try to overexceed the boundaries and the limitations that are placed upon them by the Constitution, which is a restrictive document listing specific powers that they're allowed, if they go above and beyond that, the states need to be able to say, you're breaking the contract, we're going to leave. And that's a method to check federal power and keep them in their place. By having the
100%.
states having the ability to bounce if they violate the agreement.
Right. That's 100%. Yeah, and nullification, state nullification is the halfway house to where if it's just one law, if it's only the Alien and Sedition Act, uh, then everything else is going good. Then you just nullify that one law,
Yep.
like Jefferson and Madison did in 1798.
Ooh,
Um,
with which law?
the Alien and Sedition Act.
Oh, okay.
It was during the Adams administration. This is actually the book that Tom Woods wrote on nullification. He wrote a book on state nullification, all about this, and the states having the right to just nullify a law. So the federal government puts it on the books. The state legislature, because here's the idea. I guess the courts have the right to review the constitutionality of the law, but that's everybody's job. That's what we were just
Yep.
talking about with jury nullification, right? So
Yep.
it's
Comes down to the
everybody's
people.
job, and so the state legislature um, looks at that law. They see that law come out. They say, "Whoa, wait a minute, this is unconstitutional." And rather than waiting years for the law to be challenged and work its way through the court and go to the Supreme Court and then get ruled on the wrong way and then wait another 50 years until the courts finally get it right. You know what Madison and Jefferson did? They just said, yeah, we're not going to enforce this in the state of Kentucky or in the state of Virginia. It's void
Boom.
here. And
Judo
if you
chop.
if you try to enforce this law, then we're going to arrest you.
There you go. Boom. In case you're just joining the program today, this is Common Censored. I'm Lord Sterling, and we've got special guest Andrew Hayes. Hayes 4 House with the number 4 in the middle. Hayes4house.com. He's running for U.S. House in Oklahoma's 4th district. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yes.
And seeing that book, that's one of the chief books that I push out. I don't know if this is, I guess it all ties together somehow, right? But
Of course.
last year I started a nonprofit. I started a nonprofit called Liberty Literature Foundation. And
Oh, nice.
what I do is, or what we do, it's just me, but in theory, there's others, I guess. But I take and get these books off the Mises Institute website, and then take them to places where like-minded people coalesce, but who might not have had access to them. The idea is that people read what is put in front of them, right? And so if you're right leaning, if you're a constitutional kind of person, and so on and
You mean
so
a
forth,
domestic
well,
terrorist?
yeah, yeah. Well, but then you read Sean Hannity and Mark Levin, and the problem is that they're really not all that constitutional.
Not at
So
all.
but here's the idea: is if you like listening to Mark Levin, if you like reading his books, then you pick up this book and you're gonna love it. Nine
Nice.
times out of 10, you might be an actual neocon and you might hate this, but I think
Right.
most people that like Levin, they're going to love Tom Woods, and
Right.
that's not to say that they agree, but Levin and Sean Hannity pretend to be constitutionalists, and Tom Woods really is, right?
Really is
So
100%. Yeah. I think that a lot of people who are neocons fall into that category because they haven't had the proper, information put in front of them, basically, like you were saying. So they think that neoconservatism is constitutionalism without having heard proper articulation of non-interventionist foreign policy, for instance, like you would get from Ron
yeah,
Paul or Tom Woods.
because they missed the and like I said, like I came from that thought process. It is the responsibility of the government to like protect us on some level from foreign invasion, from foreign threats,
For
and
sure.
and so there's a prima facie tangential um, logic to go that route. But when you get in and you start looking at um, the notes from the Constitutional Convention, and really most importantly, when you start looking into the notes from the ratifying
Mm,
conventions are
interesting.
so overlooked. Um, because this is when it was sold to the people. The we the people is a little bit of a misnomer. I mean, it sounds great, but the folks at the Constitutional Convention, the reason they have we the people as in the preamble of the Constitution isn't because they're speaking for the people. It's because they realized that they weren't. Because the first draft didn't have we the people, it had we, the people of Connecticut, New Hampshire, Vermont, da 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 da, on down the line, right? And then they stopped and they said, well, wait a second. People in Rhode Island might not approve this. The people
Hmm.
in Jersey or Georgia might not approve this. So instead of listing the states, let's just write we the people.
It's sort of like a linguistic trick to
I mean,
encompass everybody.
it's to encompass those who would ratify it without alienating those who would choose not to, because it would be pretty goofy if they said we the people and they listed off all the states, and then Virginia decided not to ratify it. Then wouldn't they look silly, right?
Big time.
So yeah, that's the reason why it says we the people. The real people um, were at the ratifying conventions at the state level, where they argued and argued and argued and finally ratified the Constitution. Those are the notes that are important because that's where it's spelled out. That's where objections are raised. Um, that's where rights are promised. You have in New York, Rhode Island, and in Virginia, they had the same discussion. They said, "What if this thing goes sideways?"
Hmm.
And the answer was, "Well, if it doesn't work out, then we can just leave.
Yep.
We'll secede, and you'll have the right to secede, and it'll all be okay." This isn't a suicide pact. This is a union for the benefit of the states, and if it gets to where it's no longer benefiting us, then we'll just leave. Well,
Exactly.
well, yes, and So that didn't happen, did it?
No, it kind of got
But
muddied when
that's
when the U.S. started purchasing property and incorporating states that they'd purchased. At that point, the U.S. had made an investment in purchasing that property. So for them to then decide to leave, is the argument is that they would not necessarily have that right since they were purchased by the United States of America in the first place, right?
I think that's a crummy argument. I think that it's really easy for Oklahoma to pay back the 3 cents per acre that was paid to the French.
Yeah, dude. Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah, we
3
could
cents
probably
per
pay
acre.
that. Well, that's what the Louisiana Purchase cost.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I think we could probably buy that, just pay that back to the U.S. government. Like, here's your money back. We're on our own now. Um, So, but again, I don't want people to think that I'm like a rabid
Advocating
Trump.
secession right
Yeah,
now. Sure, just
right.
just the
But
principle of the argument.
it is. It's the principle of the agreement, and everybody was on the same side. You're up there in Connecticut, so you know all about the Hartford Convention.
I wish I did. You know more about these conventions than I do. Sadly, I gotta get brushed up.
See, and I don't. I've forgotten so much in my old age. Um, I can't remember when it was. It was when Jefferson was president, and the folks up north, they didn't like Jefferson. He was a Southerner. He owned slaves. He was a free trader, um, and the North just really didn't like him. And there was a convention in Hartford, Connecticut. I think, right? Is Hartford in Connecticut?
Yes, sir. The capital.
Okay, well there you go. Yeah, it's somewhere up north. But they they had a convention, and do you know what they were talking about in that convention? They were talking about whether or not Connecticut and Rhode Island and Massachusetts should pack their bags and leave the Union.
Interesting.
That was in
Interesting.
circa 18. That was around somewhere between 1801 to 1809, right?
Yep. That's
And
about Jefferson's reign.
yeah, and nobody in the was mad or said, "Oh, you can't do that." Jefferson didn't send in the army to Hartford to shut that down. Um, that was their right. But then
Right. Well understood.
When the South wanted to do it, well, here comes the army,
Yep.
and it's a damn shame.
Blatant violation of states' rights, state sovereignty. There were arrests of Supreme Court judges, I believe, at the time. Just the chaos, total chaos.
There was. It was madness. I don't know that Taney was arrested, but Lincoln issued an arrest warrant for the Chief Justice.
Crazy. Imagine that.
I haven't read that he was arrested ever.
So maybe I'm mistaken about that. That's entirely possible. And
But
truth is what matters. So if I'm wrong, I'll admit it.
Well, hey, but how crazy is it? Can you imagine if Trump issued an arrest warrant for the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court? What kind of
If Trump did it, especially too, they would freak out.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, and we would too, rightly,
Yeah.
if Biden did it.
Right. But then in the left would be like, no, it's normal, it's fine. Biden can do it. Lincoln did it,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Hey,
two standards.
Can I stay on with you for the news?
Absolutely, yeah. If you want to jump into some news?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's see what we got next. We have a patriot pulling off an interesting troll. And before we move on, everybody make sure to check out HAYES4house.com. That's Hayes, the number 4house.com, and throw your support behind Andrew Hayes, the Ron Paul von Mises candidate that we need. We need people like Andrew Hayes in office. He's got my full endorsement, and happy to help give you a little boost here, even though we have a very limited audience. I wish you had more people to help get the word out there. Sam Duty You're going to have to get on the ground down there in Oklahoma and spread the word. So make sure to check out HAYES4house.com and throw your support behind this deserving candidate. Thanks again for joining us today. And hopefully, we can get you in there and make a big dent and like a bull in a china shop, get you in there to dismantle all the corruption, right?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
And click the donate button. Send $1 or $2, even if it's just $1. The idea is to show that there's support, to kind of, because here's the idea: even if you only give $1, that tells him that there's somebody out there that wants to vote for me. And,
that's right.
And so it does make a difference. By the
is
way,
this the donate button?
No, that's a yard sign button.
I wasn't sure if. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Boom. Donate. Yeah. I got it. There we go. Donate. Everybody give $1 and let them know that there are people out there who support logic and reason and the actual Constitution, sound money, non-interventionist foreign policy, limited federal government, all the good stuff. This is the type of candidate we need.
Yes, Tom Cole. Y'all may not know, and I'm gonna shut up about it here in a minute. But listen, Tom Cole is halfway decent on guns, abortion, and the border, and everything else he's terrible on. Woof. And even the things that he's supposed to be good on, I haven't seen anything about him abolishing the gun control act it's a gun control act of 1938 and 1968. Those are unconstitutional.
They like the NFA abolished. And everything.
Yes,
totally unconstitutional. Prima facie unconstitutional. Like, no question about it. Absolutely 100% pure evil. I don't know. You're new to the show, so you might not be familiar, but I play this all the time.
It's pure evil.
When we talk about things like that, little pure evil clip. So yeah, everybody head on over to HAYES4house.com. Might be frozen down there. Can you hear me, Mr. Hayes? Might have lost him. Cut another technical hiccup. We'll jump over into the news, and as soon as he is able, he'll be back to help us cover these topics. We have an interesting clip over here. A patriot pulls off a creative troll at Harvard, loudly blasts the national anthem in the middle of the night while the pro-Hamas agitators are trying to sleep. Pretty hilarious. Fearless patriot brutally trolled an anti-America pro-Hamas encampment late Monday night at Harvard. They're trying to sleep, and he comes through blasting. Check it out. What do you think about these on-campus protests, Mr. Hayes?
I think it's a mixed bag. Look, the whole principle of free speech is that it doesn't matter what's being said.
That's right. The problem I have is when they go beyond free speech.
Like
go ahead, sir.
Well, yeah, right. No, you're right, and it all boils back down to property rights. So if you don't have a right to be there in the first place, then you don't have a right to speak there. Okay, but I think that too many people, even on the right, are sometimes working off their emotion. Just imagine, what if we lived in an alternate universe where all these college kids are protesting, they're setting up tents, and they're doing everything that they're doing, but their gripe is not Hamas or Israel. Their gripe is that the elections were stolen.
Right.
And how does that fact change your response to what's happening? It kind of changes things, doesn't it? It kind of makes you say, well, wait a minute. They shouldn't be arrested until they actually commit a crime.
Right. Like
Because
I would
standing
consider.
out,
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, I mean, look, locking yourself in a university building and barring the door and graffitiing the place,
Crime.
absolutely, that's criminal. Standing out on the South Oval with signs and whatever goofy stuff you're doing, uh,
Not crime.
it's not a crime.
Right.
And so
Encampments blocking access to areas of property. Crime.
so what if it's an encampment on that South Oval, the south lawn of a university? So now you can be there, you can speak there. You certainly, if you set up a table, if you set up one table like they do at these college campuses, and a chair for somebody to sit down with you and argue with you, right?
Change my mind segments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Certainly, if you did that on a South Oval, that's free speech. So if
100%.
you,
1000%.
if there's 100 people that set up 100 tables, when did it stop being free speech?
I would argue when the formation of a barrier, like if you were to create 100 tables in a grid where people could walk between the tables, walk around the property, access everything fully, that's still a protest. But when you build a barrier around the outside, you prevent, let's say, Jewish students from entering within the encampment zone, restricting access to public property. That, at my point, or in my opinion, at that point, it constitutes a violation of property rights, and
Yes.
and of, as a result, the ability to have free speech on public property.
I guess, and I'm not arguing with that point. I guess the idea is the mentality, the lens through which we look at this, because at the end of the day, your rights are going to be taken away by the government, not by a bunch of hippies shouting death to Israel.
Right.
You know,
Generally, although they
so
were blocking access to class areas and stuff for students, which
Well, yeah,
which is
no, and look, I'm not saying that the police shouldn't arrest them. I'm saying that this is a time for us to watch the government like a hawk. You've got Greg Abbott
absolutely
down there in Texas, and Greg Abbott just signed
pushing
some.
anti-Semitism laws.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, and
nuts.
and what?
Oh, it's nuts. It's totally crazy.
Oh,
Blatant
yeah,
violation of the First Amendment.
right. That's kind of what I'm driving at. Is that yeah, it's a crummy deal that people break the law, but people break the law all the time. Chicago is like a war zone. Okay?
Yep,
So so
literally.
I'm not up in arms over hippies doing criminal stuff. I'm up in arms over the government uh, snuffing out our rights
Right.
over
Got to pick your
people
battles.
saying stupid stuff. Yeah, and
For
that's
example, like trying to gag Trump. How about that? New York courts trying to infringe on Trump's First Amendment rights to speak out against the corrupt prosecutor, the corrupt judge in this case. How do you feel about the gag order that's been issued by Judge Juan Merchan in New York?
I can't. And I ain't no attorney, but I can't see where a gag order is okay. When is it
Right.
okay for you're telling somebody you have a story and you are not allowed to tell your story? I don't understand it.
It's
I can't.
crazy.
Uh,
Blatant violation of the First Amendment. Gag orders historically have had extremely limited circumstances where they're constitutionally upheld. I don't know if you're familiar with Robert Barnes, the constitutional attorney, but he basically says that this is a total joke, doesn't even begin to even create, even adhere to the basic appearance of the legal circumstances that would be acceptable for a gag order. So this is crazy. Trump here, interestingly, he's found a new creative way to kind of circumvent the gag order by, instead of speaking his mind He pulls out a piece of paper and starts reading quotes from CNN and other news outlets on what they're reporting so he can say what he's thinking by quoting other people to get around the gag order. Some of these statements made about this witch hunt, Trump says, as he pulls out a piece of paper and starts quoting the news. Take a look at this.
Former President Trump.
Are you a victim of extortion? The country is on fire. There are protests all over the country. I've never seen anything like this. Many graduation ceremonies are being canceled. They're canceled, as you know, in Colombia. They're canceling a lot of them. And we have a president that just refuses to talk because he can't talk. You know that. And so does everyone else. Some of the statements made about this witch hunt on CNN, fake news CNN, Michael Moore said the proof of falsifying records has not been accomplished. On Good Morning America, they said, we heard that expense payments to lawyers are legal expenses. You pay a lawyer expense payments. We didn't put it down as construction costs, the purchase of sheetrock, the electrical cost. The legal expense that we paid was put down as legal expenses.
Makes sense. So he's circumventing the gag order by quoting other institutions. What do you think about that? Are they going to try to penalize him for that?
Well, yeah, because they hate him.
Yeah, they'll come after him for literally everything and anything they can. Gator just made a meme. Lord Sterling has two passions in life: eye drops and ducks. Beavers and ducks. Sorry, go ahead. Didn't mean to interrupt there.
Oh man, let's see. Yeah, this is okay. I see. Okay, I just got a text. I'm very sorry.
It's all good, brother.
Yeah, so yeah, they hate him. Man, let me tell you what. That's a question I get asked all the time. Are you a Trump supporter?
Complicated question. Oh, looks like he might be breaking up a little bit down there. Oh, we lost him. And he's back. All right. You said, am I a Trump supporter? And then it cut off.
Man, gosh, when he's good, he's good.
Right?
Sometimes he's not. Sometimes he's not. You know, you go back into that monetary theory and
woof. He's not the world's expert on monetary theory. As you know, printing trillions of dollars from thin air during the pandemic. And Biden gets in office and takes the brunt of the inflation under his term. But there's no doubt about it. This inflation was spurred by Trump printing trillions. Would you agree?
I mean, Congress printed the money, right? Yeah, Trump signed off on it, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, you know, what about, and this is what I was about to say, is that Trump asked the question, can interest rates go negative? Like, wait, I'm sorry, but what person asks if interest can go negative? It's not a person that knows economics. I mean, what interest is the price to borrow money, right?
Right, they're going to pay you to borrow money?
Yeah, pay me to have your money. It doesn't make sense. That's a ridiculous idea. You know, and poor Trump. I really think that, you know, if Trump could sit down and read Economics in One Lesson by Hazlitt, maybe he would be okay. Look, so often his instincts are good.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, sometimes he just flies off the rails. You know, and I don't know, this isn't bash Trump hour, but look, what about the bump stocks?
Oh my God.
In favor of the bump stock ban. What about
civil asset forfeiture?
Civil asset forfeiture he's bad on. What about raising the age to buy a pack of cigarettes to 21?
Right.
How is that constitutional? How does that make any sense?
Yeah, he's definitely not a constitutionalist. That's for sure.
Right. I mean, he winds up on the right side more often than not, but that doesn't mean he's a constitutionalist. It just means that he has good instincts, and so yeah, I'll probably mark the box, right? But yeah, well, I mentioned it before. I'm not going to wear a Trump hat.
Right? He's not a Ron Paul. That's for sure.
No, sir. What else is
Although
going
he
on?
did capture the momentum of Ron Paul's movement that transferred right into the Trump movement. Has the Federal Reserve ever had? I feel like I remember them actually having negative interest rates at one point during the banker bailout in 2008 era. Is that a thing? Like, I know it doesn't make any sense, but didn't they try to actually do that at one point?
Not to my knowledge.
It's such a weird idea. Yeah, we're gonna pay you to borrow money, like, and then I'm just gonna borrow all the money. I'll borrow all the money. I'll keep the money you pay me, and I'll just pay the money back immediately. Right? You know what I mean? Like, negative interest rates makes no sense.
No, it's the price. It's the price for having money. So, and we can get into a little bit of economics if you want to, and how the interest rate works, and the Austrian business cycle theory, and why we have these booms and busts.
Right, you see right through it with Austrian theory.
Oh yeah, it's good stuff. What else? What other news is out there?
We've got, speaking of free speech, we've got an issue over there in Germany where a German politician has just been convicted and fined $6,000 for posting statistics, actual government statistics showing that Afghan immigrants are disproportionately committing sexual assault in Germany. Elon Musk giving this a little boost on X, saying, "Are you saying the fine was for repeating accurate government statistics? Was there anything inaccurate?" She said this woman has apparently been convicted of hate crimes, basically, for quoting statistics. And Wokeness posted this. It's actually even crazier than I thought. She was convicted for, quote, asking regarding refugee resettlement. Quote, Afghan refugees welcome culture for group rapes, then posting stats below to bolster her concerns. Over at the actual coverage from CITING. I can't really actually read any of this because it's all in German. But this woman has simply asked a question about rapes and Afghan refugees with statistics, and she's been criminally convicted as a result. So that, here we have another example of free speech being infringed in Germany.
If they would use jury nullification,
maybe
right?
That would be good.
See,
that would be great.
That's where you have your last check, your last guard. This is why jury nullification is important. Clearly a stupid law. Like, I guess they don't have a constitution over there like we do, but you would think if there was anybody on the jury that had common sense, yes, she violated the letter of the law, whatever, we don't care. She's not doing anything wrong. She hasn't hurt anybody. She's fine. Not guilty. Not guilty.
Free speech, man, especially just for quoting statistics. How about this story? We got George Washington University now begging DC police for help as student protesters, quote unquote, start calling for the beheading of school president and trustees. Did you hear about this?
No, but this is amazing. Wow.
Amazing. Pro-Hamas student protesters at George Washington University are now openly calling for the beheading of school president and members of the board of trustees. They allowed the situation to go on for too long, and now it's completely out of control. Let's check out. I think we got a clip down here. Let's see what's going on.
Find you guilty.
Guillotine.
Bracy, we see you.
talking about Provost Christopher Bracey.
Up to the motherfucking gallows with you. Get out.
They're literally talking about sending these people to the gallows. University of George Washington University, Gaza Solidarity Encampment today. Protesters held a, quote, People's Tribunal, where they put President Ellen Granberg, Provost Christopher Bracey, the Board of Trustees at GW Police, and many others on trial, quote unquote. Is it normal for students to want to hang their provost and chop the heads off of the Board of Trustees? Guillotine, guillotine, they're chanting. Bracey, Bracey, we see you. You assault students too. Off to the motherfucking gallows with you. That's pretty wild. So they're asking police for help as the protests sort of take a French Revolution turn. Christopher Toto saying mostly peaceful beheadings. You remember that CNN headline during the Summer of Love?
Yeah. So, and I don't know. I'm really interested in what Rothbard has to say on speech concerning violence.
Yeah. What does he say?
You know what he says? He says that the actions are crimes. The actions are crimes. Basically, and this isn't in his book, but sticks and stones will break your bones, but words cannot hurt you.
Yep, and I agree. I'm right with you on that, brother. And with Rothbard, 100%.
So I mean, if there's it's the inciting violence doctrine that is a carve out to free speech, and Rothbard argues that no, it shouldn't be a carve out. It shouldn't at all. Here's the thing: the Patriots would hang and burn effigies of the colonial governors and the tax collectors leading up to the Revolutionary War. So I mean, what can be more of a inciting of violence than if we hang somebody in effigy? Isn't that pretty?
I would say that's not even an incitement at all, unless you're explicitly calling for it to happen in real life. And even in that case, it's just speech. Once something has happened and a crime has been committed, you could then theoretically be charged as an accomplice, like RICO style, for ordering the hit, so to speak, being the person who organized it. But until a crime has actually been committed, how can there be any violation? Nobody's rights have been violated. So how is there any criminal activity at all for mere speech?
Yeah. Well, and is that law? That's an interesting question. Is that the law now? Because how could you charge somebody with inciting violence if no violence happens?
Right. Exactly. It's ridiculous. But like with the mafia, like if the Don orders a hit, then they're inciting violence. When the actual hit gets committed, then they were the person who incited it by calling for it, and they can be arrested as an accomplice, which makes sense because a violent crime has actually occurred. Yeah. But simply speech with no violence, no criminality resulting, I don't understand how that can be prosecuted.
Yeah,
so I'm with Rothbard 100%.
And so again, the litmus test for this stuff is again, you heard what they said and you know where they stand, but you just stop and pretend that instead of them saying what they actually said, they were saying terrible things about Joe Biden and how he steals elections. Yep. Okay. And then how would you feel about it? Well, you'd be a little bit more sympathetic. And basically, when it comes to free speech, you're supposed to treat the opposite side as if what they're saying is something you agree with.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the idea. Not that you don't. And again, it's you beat bad ideas with good ideas, not with
ding ding ding. Not with suppression.
Yeah. You don't
which will only harden their positions.
It
You know,
does. It does. It solidifies their positions. I'll tell you another book that I read very early on was On Liberty by J.S. Mill. You familiar with this guy?
I am not, but I do have the entire book right here, really fast. Yeah, boom. We've got On Liberty by John Stuart Mill, 1859. This is a public domain document. I'll grab a link, put it in the show notes for anybody who may be interested in reading it. Boom. What are your thoughts on this topic, on this book? You read it early on?
Oh yeah, I read that early on, and there's a little bit of fluff in there. I feel like that doesn't really pertain, but he talks about free speech in a good chunk of the book, and about how the suppression of an idea makes the idea grow. And
Yep.
he points to Christianity, and he points to Mormonism. Both groups were persecuted, and they grew because of the persecution. Because the idea, and people understand this without having to be told, is that if your idea is so dangerous that you have to use violence to suppress it, then it must be a good idea. There must be something to it,
Yeah.
And we would
Seriously.
we would do better to either just go out and meet them in the field and argue the point, or you could, and I mean, at some point you can't spend your time arguing with everybody, but you could just ignore them, right?
Definitely.
Ignore them. That's an option.
That's the American way, man. You allow people to have their free speech. You don't like it, you don't have to tune in.
There you go. There you go. Speaking of
Imagine
which,
that.
have you ever watched these flat Earth videos?
Yes, I have. What are your thoughts?
Man, look, I'm not a flat earther, but I'm a friend of flat earthers. Okay?
Yeah, same here.
Because all right. So why are you a friend of the flat earthers?
Because I think for yourself, question authority, and the mere fact that they're questioning the narrative shows that they're thinking for themselves, which gives them points in my book. And there are people that are thinking for themselves that can be brought to our side, if we just give them the right information. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Man, I am not for the same reasons as you. Look, here's the hard truth about it, man. They're idiots. They're imbeciles. But they are the they're the goalpost of what an imbecile should be. Because the thing is that there's probably people that you work with who are idiots, that are just making your day miserable and ruining your life. There's idiots in Congress that are ruining our lives. There's idiots on the road that are trying to kill me, right, when I go out there and drive. Okay. Yep. But here you have these people. They're not hurting anybody. They're just idiots, and so that's what I think.
And that's your right.
Feather in their cap. Yeah.
Hilarious. Hilarious.
What else is out there?
Let's see. We have all kinds of crazy stuff. We have Joe Biden allegedly confessing to treason. I haven't actually checked this out yet, but Jones posted this a little earlier today, right before we went live. Let's take a listen here and see what's going on with Mr. Biden.
We immediately surged to the border.
So I guess he's just talking about the how he encouraged people to come to this country. How about how he's got all these night flights going on?
Biden.
Let's
and I
watch
should have covered this the whole show. I mean, this is over the top. Biden gets rid of the border 3.5 years ago. 20 million people are here. That's the real number, 22 million. They're slaves of the globalists, a new permanent underclass. He tells them immediately, surge the border if he wins. They get here. He says, oh, the border's not broken. He says, oh, it is broken. Pass amnesty. And then yesterday he comes out and says, oh, we can't have it illegal to come here. It's moral, just as totally open. And then it goes into the other clips.
That might be from this article here. Biden goes off script and admits real reason why he's allowing illegals to invade U.S. during interview with Spanish language radio station. Joe Biden went off script during an interview with a Spanish language radio station and admitted the real reason why he's allowing millions of illegals to invade the U.S. An estimated 11 million have come in so far, but Biden slipped and admitted the influx of illegals equals new Democrat voters. That's interesting. Look at this. It's even a bigger influx now in terms of Hispanic voters or Hispanic citizens. So
it's a little bit like back in the 1840s when the Great Exodus from Ireland because of the famine and the way Irish Catholics were treated. We said, no, we don't need any more of those folks. And there was a large influx. There's even a bigger influx now in terms of Hispanic voters or Hispanic citizens who want to become citizens. So
it's a little bit of a Freudian slip potentially, where he knows they're bringing him in to help juice the House representative numbers, because they you count the census and it doesn't ask if you're a citizen or not. So you bring illegals in, artificially boost the populations of places that you want strategic House votes to come from. Seems like this could be a little bit of a Freudian slip here, where he's admitting the underlying plan. What do you think about these night flights and how Biden is just straight up flying people from other countries into the U.S. and dropping them off all over the place?
Is that really happening?
It's really happening. Yep.
That's insane.
Completely insane. I mean, not even waiting for them to come in the border, picking them up in their own countries and bringing them here.
That's just not okay. And I don't harp on this probably enough, but we have to secure our own border. It's do or die. The Libertarian Party, of course, I'm running as a Republican, but long time in the Libertarian Party, and the Libertarian Party is split. Are you Republican?
I'm a libertarian. I'm like right in between libertarian and anarcho-capitalist, like black and yellow.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Nice. Well, I don't think that there's anything that the government can do that the free market can't do better.
Yeah, exactly. 1,000%.
So the Libertarian Party, we want liberty, but then the question has to be asked: liberty for who? If it's liberty for everybody, then maybe we have open borders, and I think that's where a good stream of the libertarians are that are for open borders.
Right. The only problem with that is that open borders can't simultaneously exist with a welfare state, right? So if we had no welfare state where people come in, they work, they're not leeching off the system, there's competition to incentivize hard work and creativity and innovation, open borders could actually be an asset for the society, but it can't exist when people can come in and leech off of the system, and effectively enough people can come in where they just take all the money out of the system. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Well, I mean, yeah, and we've got to deal with the world as it is now, right? So if you ask the question, again, liberty for whom, and you say, for me, for my people, for my family, for the people in my state, we've got to shut the border down. Because this influx of people is going to wreck that liberty. What we have left of it will be wrecked.
100%.
And so you have to secure the border. So are you not quite there to the anarcho-capitalist view?
I'm basically there. The only thing is that with anarcho-capitalism straight up without effectively governments, It could result in abuse by cartels effectively. So my view is like I kind of subscribe to the cone theory. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Styx, but a few years ago he put out a really good video where they have we have the traditional right-left spectrum, which is BS and doesn't make any sense because you have things on the individual liberty positions that are scattered on either side. I tend to view the political spectrum as a cone, where at the tip of the cone, the point of the cone is pure individualism, which is straight up anarchy. And at the opposite end is collectivism, which is various forms of, it comes in various forms: democracy, tyranny, despotism, socialism, communism, fascism, etc., monarchy. So I think we want to get as close to the tip towards total individual liberty and anarchy as possible, while having a minimum amount of government that purely exists to protect individual liberty. And so you'd take like a little step back from the tip of the cone and pure anarchy and individualism, with just enough government put there to specifically for the purpose of protecting individual rights. So that's the only little thing that keeps me away from pure anarchy, basically pure anarcho-capitalism.
So I think I'm right there with you, but the hard question is do free markets work better than the government?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So the track that when you say yes to that question, then you go down a path, and it's like a irresistible force. It's like a black hole. It just sucks you in. There is no escaping it. Not even light can escape the logic of full free markets.
Right. Yeah.
You
right, and that's what I'm talking about. Government that's not involved with markets at all. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, but wait a minute. What I was saying, I was trying to be cute. That not even light can escape the logic of Rothbard. Look,
Black hole
the reality
density.
is that well, isn't law enforcement an industry? Let's start with our schools.
It is now, that's for sure.
Education is an industry, and right now it's socialized. The government controls the means of production in education.
Yep.
And you have to be against that. I mean, this is why we're shocked when we see these protesters at universities. It's because they've spent their life in a socialist institution getting their
100%.
education. If we can't even bring kids to the point of adulthood without relying on socialism, why are we shocked when they turn into little commies at the universities? We're already it's grooming. Our government school institution has groomed them to that point.
Exactly.
And it's the natural next step, right? So education is an industry, but people don't think of it like that because the government does it, right?
Right.
So
it's such
what
bullshit.
about law?
Right. And law enforcement, interesting as well. So we aren't supposed to have like a federal law enforcement organization, as far as I remember. The FBI, was created way later. That'd be like a state issue, in my opinion. I would completely eliminate federal involvement in education and everything as well. What are your thoughts on law enforcement?
Well, and so this isn't necessarily what I'm running on. Look, let me throw this out there. Is we got back at 12:15 at Runningmead, we got the right to a jury trial. If you'd had somebody show up and say, yeah, and I also think we should have representative government, okay, that idea would have been laughed at, right? Nobody would have. I mean, what are we talking about here? The same thing for some guy who comes along in 1400s Europe and says, well, we really shouldn't be having the government fund the churches. Maybe we should have separation of church and state. Maybe we should have freedom of religion. That guy would have been laughed
Completely out of the paradigm.
Yeah,
It's like
right.
Galileo
And
saying we revolve around the sun, and everybody's like, "Get out of here,
yeah,
you lunatic!"
well, or if you were in Virginia in the early 1600s talking about emancipating slaves, they would have thought you were a nutcase. Um,
Yep.
so it is. So it is. I think with Rothbard, I think that, and this is why I might not be a full Rothbardian, is because practically speaking, um, it's not feasible. At the same time, you look backwards through history and you can see how there were ideas that weren't feasible before their time came. And yeah, maybe 200 or 300 years from now or longer, I don't know. But maybe one day people will look back on Rothbard and say that he was the man with the ideas, and they would have private, um, that maybe someday in the future they will have competing law enforcement agencies. And we've
Right.
got it in my county. There's two guys both running for sheriff, and it's like, I would really like to see them both compete against
Have
each
their
other in
own,
the
yeah,
market.
just like currencies.
Yeah, and see who does better, but that's not how government works. Government is essentially socialism. We're going to socialize, um, the roads, the schools, the law enforcement, the courts, and there is no competition.
Yep.
So it's not free market, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's
My ideal government would
purely
have nothing to
meta.
do with any of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, and all this, like I say, all this is purely meta, and
Yep.
it's armchair philosophizing. It's not like I'm not actually going to vote to abdicate the government. Okay,
Right.
so
Like I'm not actually going to open the borders. I just bring the point that open borders can't exist with a welfare state to just eliminate the possibility the possibility of even entertaining that idea. You know what I mean? Hey, would you mind
Right.
taking a brief commercial interlude? Not really commercial. Just play a song for a minute. I've got to drain the main vein. And let's take a 3-minute recess. And come
Okay.
back in a couple seconds. All right. We'll be right back, guys. Thanks for listening, and we will be right back with you.
This is an emergency broadcast on behalf of Infowars.com. If you are receiving this transmission, then you are the resistance.
We gotta take the power back, take the doomsday clock and turn the hour back. The Fed's power comes from our respect, but they used it to tie the noose around our necks. They're hiding the truth, but together combined we can win the mind of the youth. Individualists working together in groups, combating collectivist standardization, fighting nationwide centralization. Signs of desperation from the globalists, but we still need to pick up the pace, cause we gotta face that the journey's far from over with. Although the treacherous route may look never ending, knowing the truth is the first step to true ascension. It's now or never to embrace freedom, show Big Brother and the nanny state we don't need them. Reject the new world order, they're building up the wall brick by brick, but 1776 is the cure for 1984. Pay attention, here's a lesson, how can you know the answer if you've never asked the question? We've been given life and that's a blessing, now you need to think outside the box and wake up to reality. Feel the gravity, question authority, act morally. As humans we were born to be free and independent. Just like John Fitzgerald Kennedy said it. Reject the new world order, they're building up the wall brick by brick, but 1776 is the cure for 1984. What would you do if federal emergency management comes gunning for you? And keep your eyes out for homeland security. Just replace homeland with fatherland and you've got Nazi Germany. Transportation security administration actively practicing molestation if you opt out of getting photographed naked with body scanners that bake you with radiation. Reject the new world order, they're building up the wall stacking bricks. Think 1776. It's an info war. Don't get tricked by the mainstream. Big government works with big business to make schemes. We need to realize that things aren't as they seem. It's time to wake up from the American daydream. Repping my Second Amendment, I'm with the gun cocked. Up on the soapbox, speaking to whole lots of people now ready to hear the truth. Waking them up from the American daydream. They're feeling spooked. How could this be reality in front of me? What I see is corruption with no repercussions. Well, welcome to the introduction of revolutionary mass production. Sparking fires in the minds of citizen innocents worldwide, listening to the genesis of the Patriot mission. Stop wishing, get mad, stop laughing, and start yelling. Now is the time to put your thoughts into action and tell them, look, you crooks, we know you stage terror attacks, devalue the dollar and create economic collapses all around the world, manufacturing fear, outsourcing our jobs and destroying our sovereignty. Declare sovereignty under the 10th
Amendment. That's one of your issues. Boom! Boom! Look at Ron Paul there, the GOAT. Let's take a look at that little picture somebody created of him.
That's amazing.
Fighting velociraptors.
Yeah, I got asked by somebody earlier today about my support for Trump, and I think I answered that question with I support Ron Paul, and
yeah,
they said,
exactly.
well, would you vote for Ron Paul over Trump? And I'm like 100%.
You kidding me? It's not even a question.
Yeah. No, it's not. I don't know. I think I might have lost their support.
It happens, you know.
I don't want their support.
Yeah, Ron Paul is a league beyond. Yeah, yeah.
No, that's not the idea. I'm not going out there trying to bend and meld my position so it can wrap around where you think and bring you in. I've got a message, and what I want to do is I want to convince you that Ron Paul was right. And,
yes.
And then have right.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. Ron Paul. # Ron Paul 2024. Oh man. Do you watch the Liberty Report often?
I've gotten back into watching it. Yeah. I guess I kind of forgot that it was happening, but yeah, last couple of weeks, like I say, since he was on with Tucker Carlson, I've gotten back into it. And
nice. Man, hopefully his traffic has increased.
Dude, Ron Paul needs to run for president. Like
I know.
He's still in better shape. Look at the mental acuity of him versus Joe Biden. And Ron Paul is older than him by several years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm all for a Ron Paul presidency. Put Rand in as VP, so have his son for his VP. They won't whack him or off him or whack him off because it would, be like a little mini Ron Paul in there that would take his place. How about this story? Yeah. We got a New York Dem who voted for the law meant to ensnare President Trump, who now says the law is unconstitutional after a rape suit has been brought against him when Democrat politicians in New York passed the Adult Survivors Act to punish Donald Trump and provide for E. Jean Carroll the ability for her to go after Trump 30 years later. They basically extended the statute of limitations, making it possible to come after people decades and decades later, long after the ability to prove this type of assault would have vanished if there wasn't hard evidence like a dress with Bill Clinton or like videotapes or something. They basically changed the law so that E. Jean Carroll could file that suit against Trump. And it's backfiring on this guy. Now, Kevin Parker, Democrat state senator representing Brooklyn, is calling the Adult Survivors Act unconstitutional. Yet he voted for it. So rules for me, not for thee, right? They want to pass these garbage unconstitutional acts purely to get Trump. And then it comes back to bite them. Ooh, Mama Mac has a great comment down there in the chat. Look at this. Think we can get Trump to choose Ron Paul as VP? Oh, man. No, unfortunately, I doubt it. But it'd be amazing.
I think we'll be doing good if he'll pick Vivek. Vivek is the guy. I mean,
yep.
The political the political realities of where we're at today, Vivek is probably the best choice for VP.
I agree, man. Light years above and beyond all the competition.
Yeah, I mean, and Ron DeSantis, yeah, he's got policy, but he's like me. He's kind of boring. He doesn't have the pizzazz.
And now he's been in bed with the big money powers, the neocons, after he was like cuddling up with Karl Rove and the Bushites during his run. They were the people backing him for president. So that makes me nervous about Ron DeSantis. I don't think he can be trusted after aligning with that whole neocon crowd.
Yeah, he's probably done then. He's probably done.
Yeah, unfortunately, ruined all hopes. All he had to do was literally do nothing. If he just sat back, did nothing, he was a shoo-in for 2028. He had a deal inked behind the scenes, according to Robert Barnes, with Trump, where Trump would handle foreign issues and let Ron DeSantis do what he did with Florida across the nation, handling domestic stuff as VP, while Trump simultaneously grooms him and introduces him to the foreign leaders to give him that international prestige, basically to tell foreign leaders that when I'm gone, his word is my word, so you better fucking listen to him and respect him. But apparently he bailed out on that deal and broke his word and decided to run against Trump. And we know Trump doesn't like it when people do that. Same with Tricky Nikki. She said, I'd never run against Donald Trump. And then she's like, I'm running against Donald Trump.
Nikki Haley is trash.
Yep.
She's exactly the kind of people that the libertarians don't. And this is the thing. I'm talking with people about this earlier today. The Patriot wing of the Republican Party and the Mises Caucus of the Libertarian Party really should be one party.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
it's
like in Oklahoma, that would be a thing. That would be a huge thing. But the problem is too many. Well, and I don't know if it's a problem. It's like I say, it's kind of how my wife feels about it. Yeah, she doesn't want to be at a party with people like Nikki Haley. They're losers. They're absolutely just rotten. They're intellectually
puppets.
bankrupt. They're morally bankrupt.
Right, like Vivek pointed out, she couldn't name the three Donbass region, provinces or oblasts that they call them over in Ukraine. She's basically just a puppet of the military-industrial complex, who will just regurgitate whatever the people financing her campaign tell her to do, basically. Because
so here's the deal, and you know about Scott Horton, right?
It sounds familiar, but I can't place the name. Tell me.
So Scott Horton is the man on foreign policy. He runs the Libertarian Institute and antiwar.com. And
I know that website.
Whatever you think you know about foreign policy, you've only scratched the surface, because Scott Horton has forgotten more than the rest of us know put together.
Combined. Hardcore.
The guy is an absolute machine. And
the great Ron Paul. He wrote a book, Interviews 2004 to 2019. Yeah, look at this guy.
Yeah, and exactly. So I'm no Scott Horton. I can't tell you the different regions of eastern Ukraine. I don't know that stuff. But
neither can I. But we're not advocating to bomb it and send our money there.
Right.
And that's the difference between Nikki Haley and us.
I know it ain't in the United States, so I ain't going to make money there.
Exactly. We don't need to know, because we're not trying to justify sending money over there.
Yeah. Scott Horton, though, that guy's the beast, man. He's whatever you think you know about foreign policy, this guy. Yeah.
I've definitely covered stories from antiwar.com. Let's take a look over there right now and see what's going on.
War.
We've got Israel capturing Rafah border, cutting off aid. Republican senators threatening the International Criminal Court for Israel. Moscow warning it can strike UK military targets. Ooh, there was speculation that if things happened, that they could target the Channel. I remember Redacted were talking about that yesterday. The tunnel beneath the English Channel. Imagine what a mess that would be.
That's terrible. And
what do
and
you?
by the way,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I do know this. I know that the French and the Russians have never been friends, and I know that the president of France is talking about actually sending troops to Ukraine.
Yeah,
and
it's nuts.
The French and the Russians are actually changing. They're trading lead in Africa right now, and what we need to do is get ourselves clear of that mess. And
absolutely.
Maybe if we get out of it, maybe the French will get out of it too, and we don't see World War III kick off. Because, folks, I mean, we're going around just like society, just like everything is normal. And that's the same way life was in August of 1914, right before World War I started. Everything was fine. And it kicked off in an instant because there were all these entangling alliances.
Right. Entangling alliances. Ron Paul.
What we need to do, well, hell, that's George Washington for that sake, for that matter.
Nice.
Yeah, George Washington in his farewell speech warned us against entangling alliances. And
so that's where Dr. Paul got it. Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, and too, as great as Ron Paul is, I don't think that he would shy away from saying it. Is that he's standing on the shoulders of giants too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
But if we disentangle ourselves from it and just say, you know what, we're out, then maybe this whole thing can kind of wind down and de-escalate. And the whole thing should have been done peacefully. Frankly, that Donbass area, the allegations and the complaints coming out of Russia was that the ethnic Russians were being treated unfairly in eastern Ukraine. They were an ethnic minority, and they weren't getting a fair shake. And really what should have happened is, and what can I say? Where Trump is good, he could have been better. He could have gone over there and said, hey, why don't we make a buffer state? And this area, this Donbass area, maybe it can be independent and it can be its own little country.
Interesting. Yeah. That could have solved a lot of problems for sure. Trump would be the kind of guy that could get that kind of thing done too. Yeah, the Donbass has been being bombed relentlessly since the Maidan coup in 2014, just antagonizing the bear. Yeah, I jokingly put up the rootin' for Putin hashtag every once in a while.
That's terrible. Yeah, and I'm not. But look, what about that? I mean, is it okay for us to, I wonder what Ron Paul would say about that. Is that even okay for us to go over there and mediate and, conduct talks and kind of facilitate that, or should we just be
stay out of it entirely?
Yeah.
Right, because if we go over there and we influence the dialogue, then whichever party ends up losing, there's going to be grievance against us just for merely being involved with the negotiations. Unless you can kind of do what Trump did, he's the master of the deal, and create a mutually beneficial deal for everybody where everybody ends up happy or everybody's equally unhappy at least, then maybe it would be less of an issue. It really depends on who the commander-in-chief is, I think. Although, of course, the argument could be made for total non-interventionism and not being involved at all.
But then it sets precedents, right? Because Trump could pull that off, but there's no chance that Biden could. So Biden's
not even close.
To do what Trump did, and then he's going to end up making a mess out of it. Man, I don't know.
Exactly.
I think you might we do have free speech. It's maybe sending a letter over would be enough. Say, hey, here's what I'm seeing from the outside. Here's how I see that y'all could work it out, and everybody be happy, and just leave it at that. And if they want to take it, good. If they don't, fine. But man, we are stepping up to the brink of a world war, and people just
Big time.
don't see that. They don't see it. But like I say, the French and the Russians are swapping blood in Africa right now.
Right. And people of our generation and the previous generation, we've grown up in a time of like this bubble of peace and prosperity in the U.S. and the upswing of the inflationary bubble that built a lot of our technological advancement and everything. And so people don't understand the horrors of the potential war that they're potentially getting us involved in with interventionist foreign policies. They might have a little different perspective if they were around during World War II, or if they were around during a time where the U.S. was actively involved in a conflict. I feel like people just don't understand that how fucked up things can get. You know what I mean?
And think back to 2020. And maybe we're still having a little bit of supply chain issues reverberating through our economy today. But you think about those supply chain issues and how rough that was, during COVID. Hey, if we get ourselves into a major war, COVID, it'll be like
look
COVID,
like a walk in the park.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
exactly. It would be real bad. The supply chain type things that were able to be worked out eventually, but it didn't really affect us here. But when you screwed up the first world supply chains, the third world suffered. Tens of millions of people died as a result of our supply chain issues here, because with the limited supplies that were still available, we got the first dibs effectively. And I can't even remember the number, but millions died during of starvation during the pandemic in the third world.
See, I didn't realize that. My understanding is that they simply didn't shut down because they couldn't. But you're right, there was a famine because of the Ukraine. Yeah, I guess there was a famine, wasn't there?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the exact information. Having trouble pulling it up at this instant, lightning fast. But I'd read that millions died due to starvation because of the whole supply chain things. Sorry for the brief interlude here as I try to find this out. I can't type apparently either, which is screwing me up. Most people don't know thousands of people died in third world countries of the starvation when food supply chain was disrupted. Most Americans think lockdowns were justified, even though they didn't work. Millions of kids lost out. I don't know. I'll try to find something on it for the future. But yeah, it's a big problem when the first world supply chain goes down, the third world really suffers as a result of it. Let's see, what else do we have for news? We've got Trump lawyers moved for a mistrial over Stormy Daniels' testimony. Of course, Merchan struck it down. Merchan agrees with Bragg and Biden's attorneys, saying Stormy Daniels has credibility to testify about the alleged affair, even though she's repeatedly denied such affair. Went on over the years and issued, remember that statement that Trump released from 2018, to whom it may concern. Over the past few weeks, I've been asked countless times to comment on reports of an alleged sexual relationship I had with Donald Trump. And this is Stormy Daniels talking, not me. Lord Sterling had no sexual relationship with Donald Trump many, many years ago. The fact of the matter is that each party to this alleged affair denied its existence in 2006, 2011, 2016, 2017, and now again in 2018. I'm not denying this affair because I was paid hush money, quote unquote, as has been reported overseas in overseas-owned tabloids. I'm denying this affair because it never happened. I will have no further comment on this matter. Please feel to check me out on Instagram at @TheStormyDaniels. So she's over here admitting that there was no hush money, that the affair never occurred. What are your thoughts on that? Have you seen this before?
No, I haven't. But it kind of. Oh man, Ron Paul doesn't have any kind of skeletons like that in his closet. You know that?
Just a 70-year marriage to Carol.
Yeah, yeah. It's just what a sorry situation we're in that Donald Trump is the best, and
I know.
Yeah. It's wild.
He can't be necessarily bought because he's independently wealthy. That's the other thing that's really attractive about Vivek is that it seems that when you're listening to Vivek or Donald Trump talk, or Ron Paul, just because he's incorruptible and has proved so over decades of being the only person to stand up and vote no in Congress to unconstitutional laws being proposed, hence his nickname Dr. No. But with Trump, with Vivek, by all outward appearances, it's that they can't be bought because they're independently wealthy, and they're actually saying what they think, as opposed to Nikki Haley, who's speaking. When she talks, it's like the military-industrial complex talking. When DeSantis, it's like Karl Rove is talking. Sometimes, at least Trump can't be bought, and same with Vivek. That makes him very appealing in my point of view. What do you think about that? Having a billionaire candidate?
Yeah, see, I'm the exact opposite of a billionaire candidate. And it kind of one of the first questions you asked, why are you running? It's like, I'll tell you what, I farm, run cattle, I build fence for other farmers, and we can't make it. We can't make it like this because the economy is so jacked up and prices are so out of whack. I can't get fence jobs because the cost of material has gone up, cost of labor has gone up, and these old tight farmers won't spend the money for fence because they think it's too much money. Well, it is, but the value of the dollar has been eroded away and
systematically evaporated to destroy the purchasing power and bankrupt middle class. So I guess that you've raised an interesting idea. There are two types of people that can't be corrupted: the rich who can't be bought, and the broke who refuse to be bought. One end of the spectrum is Trump. One end of the other end of the spectrum is Andrew Hayes for House of Representatives.
Yeah, I mean he can't be bought, and I'm not. I don't guess I can be bought either. You ask yourself that, like, again, think back to the ring. Think about the corruptibility of that ring and what it did to Frodo towards the end of the last movie, and what it did to him. Like it's a scary thought, and we tie into term limits at this point, and we need term limits so that
big
a guy
time
can go up there and turn into Smeagol. I mean Tom Cole. It's
my precious.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I'm not trying to make caricatures here, but is that not what it is? Is it not a man who started off as a man and he's morphed into a swamp creature that all he cares about is power, and he's voting away Oklahomans taxpayers to
Man,
Ukraine and to Israel. Um,
so
no,
brutal.
he's just, yeah, that's he's been destroyed. It's destroyed him. But listen, here's the thing: term limits have a downside too, because at the end of the day, there's more Nancy Pelosi's and Mitch
Right,
McConnell than there are Thomas Massey's and Andrew Hayes's. Okay,
right.
so we're at a disadvantage there because when Nancy Pelosi turns out, there's just going to be another empty suit ready to take her spot.
Right. If you look at
And
this chart, there's more people with 100 IQ, corruptible, buyable, who won't stand on principle derived from reason than there are people up here in our range who are use reason and refuse to be purchased or manipulated. So yeah, like you said, there's way more of them than there are of us, as demonstrated by this Gaussian curve chart of IQ distribution, men and women in red, men in blue. Just interesting.
And this, what is this now? How likely they are to be?
This is their IQ curve. So there's like a bell curve of average intelligence. Women have more ranks with 100 IQs, fewer people with higher IQs, fewer people with lower IQs. They tend to coalesce towards the center, where there's fewer men with median IQ, way more dumb men, and also a lot more smart men as well. Just interesting. There's way more people around 100 IQ in both the men and the women, and those are the type of people that are attracted to power, that will that will sell out, who don't have a grasp on the nuance of the philosophy and the context of where we find ourselves in history, who are kind of just who blow with the wind, who can be they'll flow with the currency as the currency flows. You know what I mean? Like you're saying, yeah. Nancy Pelosi. She's probably smart and more devious, but principle.
Well,
I think
what
it's
I'm getting at here's what I'm saying: if Thomas Massey terms out, if Ted Cruz or Rand Paul term out, what are the chances of getting somebody else of their caliber?
Exactly. Ron Paul had like 12 terms. What if he was axed at 3? When you find gems, diamonds in the rough, you can't kick them out.
So here's the idea, sir: is instead of having hard and fast term limits that stunt the career of these gems, the idea is to have consecutive term limits, so that you get 2 terms in, and then you can do what you want. But if you want to be eligible to run again, you can't hold any other office, elected or appointed. You can't work for the government. You can't work for a government contractor. And you can't be a lobbyist for 1 term. After 1 term, then you can go back and run again. You regain your eligibility to run for office.
People see what they're missing out. They get a taste of your opponent to see how things work with them. Then they have perspective to choose with informed consent to bring you back into office. That sounds like a pretty good plan to me.
Right. It breaks up the consolidation of power. Because one of the things I'm facing, if you don't know, is Tom Cole is one of the most powerful men in Washington, D.C. He's the chair of the Appropriations Committee. So people in Oklahoma are like, well, my gosh, this is the most powerful person we've ever had up there in 50 years or whatever.
They're like celebrating. It's like, no. Yeah,
but on some level, on some level, it's a good thing, because Fort Sill, Tinker Air Force Base, they will be well funded. Make no mistake about it. I'm not saying that Tom Cole, well, I know what he's going to do. He's going to make Fort Sill and Tinker Air Force Base grow because he's on that appropriations committee. And so it's going to be a boon to the district, but at what cost? At what expense is that going to happen?
Right. What's he giving away to get those benefits?
Well, what we're going to be is we're going to be like it's the top of a pile of rubble at the end of the day, right? Because he's going to destroy the country and not just him, but you understand what I'm saying. Uh, yeah, we don't. That's not what we want. We've got to save the country. Uh, Fort Sill and Tinker Air Force Base aren't going anywhere anyway. Uh, Certainly not Fort Sill. Have you heard of Fort Sill?
No, unfamiliar. Tell me about it.
It's the world's largest artillery installation.
So you must have
And
some personal experience having been in National Guard over there.
yes, well, the thing I'm from Lawton, and I could probably, well, they're within shooting distance. I don't know if I could throw a rock and hit it, but I could definitely shoot onto Fort Sill. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
Very poor choice of words, Batman. Lacrosse ball. Lacrosse ball. You can hit it with a lacrosse ball.
No. Anyway, point being is that yeah, I've grown up in this community my entire life, and Fort Sill is actually owned by the Indian tribes, and
Interesting.
the Army leases the land. I think we just renewed
Oh,
a
wow.
100-year lease. So
Wow.
Fort Sill will be the last military installation in the country to shut down. It's not going anywhere.
Huh.
I try and remind people of this. It's like, hey, Fort Sill is going to be okay, even if you elect a rookie congressman. It's going to be okay, guys. But I'll tell you another issue that we have and that I recently learned about. So check this out: when somebody goes into the Army and they do some jacked up stuff, we have a prison here. There's still one at Leavenworth, but in Kansas. But when they get released from this little prison we have out here at Fort Sill, you know where they take them?
Where?
They don't send them back to wherever they came from, to Oregon or North Carolina or anything like that. They drop them off at the gate at Sheridan Road, right here in
What?
Montana. Yeah, that crap needs to end.
Dude, that's crazy.
Like, I mean, it's kind of rotten to dump criminals in any one spot. They need to go back from where they came from.
Right.
And,
Like,
oh my
remember I
gosh,
talked about those night flights? 80% of those illegals that Biden's flying in go to Florida.
Yeah.
80%.
Oh man,
Crazy.
Yeah, they hate DeSantis, and man, I gotta tell you, that's the thing that is really enjoyable with Trump. That's what I really like about Trump is how he causes the left to lose their mind. Right?
Oh yeah.
That's
definitely.
That's the thing.
Priceless.
Oh yeah, that's great, and that's a quality I don't think I don't think Ron Paul has that quality, right?
No, not exactly.
No, but there's always just trade-offs. There's trade-offs. There's nothing perfect in the world. So, yeah.
Ron Paul also not the strongest public speaker. He stumbles a little bit over topics. He's not necessarily the most enthusiastic type guy, but when like he was always surprised during the 2008, 2012 rallies, he talked about how he would go and he would be talking about Austrian economic policy and the crowds would erupt. Everybody it's the last thing you would expect. You're talking about some heady, topic like Dusty Rothbard and von Mises type stuff. And the crowd erupts. It's like counterintuitive.
So, the guy that built this website, HAYESforhouse.com, he told me and he explained it to me. And like, on one hand, he's not wrong. Is that Donald Trump speaks to the people on a fourth or fifth grade level, right? You agree with that?
For sure.
He makes it simple. They can understand it. They get behind him. They go vote for him. He wins.
Right.
Ron Paul didn't do that.
He did not.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you've got to wake up. You've got to read a book, and here's the deal. I'll plug that nonprofit I started again, the Liberty Literature Foundation. The idea behind that one of the ideas behind it is that um, the men who started the revolution, the Patrick Henrys and the George Masons, Thomas Paines, they they didn't just wake up one day and have a revolution. Like it's like everybody's up in arms over their arms over guns, right? And say, well, we got to protect our guns because we might need to have a revolution someday. Well, that's sweet. I appreciate the sentiment, but the reality is that the men who had that revolution, they had ideas. They read books. They understood some basic economic theory. This was long before Ludwig von Mises came along in the Austrian school, but they understood certain principles, and they understood principles of liberty. And without the books, without the ideas, they would have never picked up their guns. We've got to
Right,
pick up
exactly.
books before we, uh, do anything else, frankly. And
Yep.
so
Is there a website for that? The Liberty Literature Foundation?
it's under construction.
Okay, cool. I was searching for it. I found mention of it.
Yeah, it's not put together yet. I was going to I got a guy working on it, but it's one of those things. He's a liberty-minded guy like us, and so he's doing it pro bono. I told you guys I
Nice.
don't have a lot of money, but he's doing
Same
it pro
here.
bono. And look, hey, when you build a website pro bono, it has a tendency to get pushed back and not get done. So
Definitely. And just a reminder for everybody, make sure to go over to hayes4house.com. Click this donate button right
Yeah.
here, this one. Click this donate button.
I tell you what, if I had $1 from everybody that
$1 or more.
that just said, "Hey man, I hope you beat that guy," that just not say that and give me $1, Tom Cole might be scared.
Right?
Yeah,
I believe it.
If I had $5, I'd probably win.
Definitely. I honestly wouldn't surprise me. We got to get you some support. We need to make this happen. I wish I had a bigger audience so that I could help you. Because like I said, you're the exact type of candidate that we need. If we don't get you in, we're going to have to clone you and just start issuing copies and having them run in all the states.
I've got 3 kids.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Clones in progress.
Can I tell you a little story about my kids? So,
Please.
Look, here's the deal. The boy is about to turn 12. The little girl just turned 9. And we're driving along in the pickup. And she says, "Well, Dad, what are you running for again?" And I tell her, so let me give you a little bit of backstory real quick. The little girl, and I don't know why, but she is the world's biggest Taylor Swift fan. She loves Taylor Swift. Right,
T-Sweezy.
The boy cannot stand her. Doesn't like her videos.
Typical.
Doesn't like her face. There's nothing about her. He hates Taylor Swift. Can't stand her. Her music to him is like nails on a chalkboard. I'm telling you, it's the way to get him in line. You don't have to threaten to whoop him anymore. Like, boy, if you don't act right, I'm going to put Taylor Swift on. He will fix.
I'll do whatever you want.
Don't do that. So here's what happened. We're in the truck. Little girl says, "Now, Dad, what are you running for again?" I said, "Well, I'm running for U.S. House, and so I'd be in the government if I won." And so then I pause and I say, "And if I win, I'm going to ban Taylor Swift." And of course, I'm just trying to get a rise out of her.
Yeah.
Before she could think of anything to say, like any threat, she likes to threaten violence against me mostly. But before she's able to threaten any violence, Paul pipes up. He says, "Dad, you can't do that."
Oh.
Yeah, he's like, "Dad, you can't do that. That would violate the First Amendment." That's
boom, principled little individuals, clones on the way.
Yeah, it's epic, man. And Addie's
so
just
cool.
Addie's like, that's right, Dad. Like, and she,
Right.
I mean, she's 9, so she definitely wasn't thinking those thoughts. But yeah, it's
Paul's like, I
she's
might disagree with your choice of music, but I'll fight to the death for your right to listen to it.
just don't make me listen to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's
very much
brilliant.
so. So they're on the right track. By the way, we homeschool.
Nice.
My wife is a nurse, and Oklahoma, we're blessed. Oklahoma doesn't have any laws on homeschooling, so it's a free country out here, and you want to homeschool, you homeschool. There's no check-ins, no standardized tests. Um, there's nothing. If you want to raise your kid to be an idiot, you can do that. Uh, Probably
Woof.
makes more sense to send them to the government school if that's what you want to do.
Right, why
Um,
bother? You could get it for
yeah,
free.
but yeah. So Connecticut, y'all, um, and I haven't like researched Connecticut, but it's in that part of the country. Are y'all even able to homeschool?
Yeah,
Do you
there's
know?
homeschool. It's few and far between. At least it was when I was growing up. And the people that are homeschooled are kind of viewed as like pariahs by the rest of the people in the indoctrination camps, the federal indoctrination zone camps. But and it's I don't know if Connecticut's really a good example of anything because
Well, is it not a good example of the left? Is it not a
it's not a good example of good things.
right? No, I got you, but yeah, no, I've heard where you have to. I think Massachusetts, they've got to be the worst. You have to get a license.
Wow,
Like they,
that's
and
insane.
I don't know, but I think I've heard that you have to go and apply to get a license to homeschool your kids.
That's
And
crazy.
they,
And it's
they
like
come in,
impossible to get guns in Boston area too as well. They're just
yeah.
infringing on people's rights like crazy. Speaking of getting a license, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What do you think about licensing bureaus? Like medical licenses, legal licenses like the bar and stuff like that. What do you think about licensing bureaus in general? The monopolization of like creating guilds in branches of the economy.
Yeah, I mean, you're there. You know what I think.
Yeah, yeah. It's like almost a rhetorical question asking you.
Yeah, it is. You know, it's it's one of the things that drives up our costs, specifically in medicine. And this
Yeah.
sounds wild, but it's not so much the doctors licensing to um, do doctoring. It's the licensing and the accreditation of medical schools. That's
Hmm.
that's really where the bottleneck is. You have extremely here's the idea, man. I graduated with normal grades, probably below normal grades. Okay, um, because school sucked and it was boring. Um,
Yep.
but people like me and you, and I'm not calling you dumb, but we don't we don't apply to medical schools. You don't have B students apply to medical schools. You have A students apply to medical school and they don't get in because that bar is set so high. So what they do is they don't get accepted to medical school, so they become pharmacists, they become veterinarians, which is nuts. If you don't know, being a veterinarian, you have to know way more stuff than to be a family practice physician.
Yeah. A lot of
Like way,
veterinarians could probably take care of your, health better than a lot of the the medical family medicine practitioners like Dr. Joel Wallach, the veterinarian who wrote Dead Doctors Don't Lie. And has all kinds of nutrient-based remedies for ailments that medical doctors just stick to the Rockefeller Western style of petrochemical medicine. Not to interrupt, but yeah, you know what I'm saying.
oh yeah, but what I'm driving at is that very smart people are turned away from medical school and they go on to do things that are just as complicated as medicine. They're
Yep.
clearly smart enough, but the seats for medical school are limited, and the government doesn't allow new medical schools or those medical schools to expand enrollment, and that's really the
Bullshit.
bottleneck. They're controlling the amount of people who are able to get doctor licenses, um, because they're controlling the number of seats to medical school, and that's a problem. I mean,
Crazy.
we see almost the same thing when it comes to oil, and it always just frustrated me that Sarah Palin, when she's goes on drill baby drill, man, it doesn't matter how much oil you get out of the ground, you've got to refine it, and we haven't had a new refinery built in the United States since 1983.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, now they've at least expanded, but it's the refining process that's the bottleneck. We have to expand our refining capacity to drive oil prices down. I mean, among other things, yes, it helps to drill. Yes, we should drill offshore. Yes, we should
Drill,
drill.
baby, drill.
Yeah, drill, baby, drill. But don't forget about the refining capacity, because you can't take it directly out of the ground and stick it into your car. It doesn't work like
Yep.
that. So we have to refine it, and it's you see how the two issues are kind of the same thing. It's the bottleneck.
For sure. Artificial bottlenecks.
It's an artificial bottleneck.
It drives me crazy, dude. The centralized imposition of oh man, of limitations. It drives me nuts, dude. It drives me nuts, completely nuts.
Well, I mean, so many things that the government does, like you have the FDA, and I have a friend whose mother lost her battle to cancer and all that.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
And I was talking with him about medicine and the FDA, and man, it makes people mad, but they don't know what's going on. You understand that there are treatments. The way the FDA works is, before they approve a drug, it has to have a certain threshold of effectiveness. It has to be safe, and that makes sense to everybody, right? Like, we don't want a drug that causes people to die. That would be bad. But also, they say it has to be effective. So if they come out with a drug that's safe and effective for 20% of the population, but is ineffective for 80%, then the drug doesn't get to pass. So how does, talk about emotion, what kind of feelings does that cause a person to have when you know that, man, your mom would have had a 20% chance if she had been allowed
to try
a drug, right?
Yeah.
And the idea is like, maybe this drug works for these 20 people or 20%, and this drug works for this 20%. And why are we keeping these drugs off the market? Simply because they don't meet that effective threshold of 60 or 70 or 80%. I don't know what the threshold is.
In my opinion, it's an individual liberty, concept. You have the right to put what you want in your body. And in my opinion, the federal government needed an amendment to regulate alcohol. They would need an amendment to be able to regulate medicine, narcotics, any other kinds of drugs. They don't have an amendment for that. So in my opinion, the whole classification of regulated substances and everything is completely unconstitutional. If you're putting something out on the market falsely, claiming it's effective, then people die. You could be sued for fraud, and that's like a free market way of handling this type of thing. But people have the right, as long as they're being properly informed by the creators of the risks and everything, to put whatever they want in their bodies, which is another Ron Paul thing. He's like, I don't, recommend you use heroin, but, I recognize your right to put what you want in your body. Same thing applies to medicine. That's one good thing Trump did, the right to try law that allowed people to try these types of, controversial or not so necessarily effective medicines. What do you think about that?
Yeah, maybe the things I'm telling you about, maybe some of it was addressed with Trump. I don't know. I don't know for sure. Um, but yeah, the principle's there, and it's just one of those things that's infuriating that we either do still deal with that or we're dealing with it. But yeah, the government is just man, they're a mess. Think about the which, by the way, I won't shy away from talking about narcotics, but um, I have to have. Um, it's not something I'm going to give a 2 minute answer on. I want time, and my time at this point is running out. Um, so maybe another time to bring that up. But
Absolutely. Have you heard about law enforcement against prohibition? Just a
I
question.
haven't
They were
heard that.
around like decade and a half ago. I saw a presentation that they gave at Harvard in 2008. Basically, all these law enforcement guys who studied the statistics over in Portugal and places where they've legalized substances, and sort of similarly to John Lott's More Guns, Less Crime book,
Yeah.
they came to the determination that it's safer and more morally acceptable to not criminalize drugs because, for instance, people die from heroin from potency fluctuations where they get used to shooting up 5 bags of a batch of a certain potency. Then they run out, they go buy another batch, they shoot up 5 bags, but it's twice as strong and they overdose. If you had it legal, the potencies were regulated and controlled. You know what you're getting on the package. It's marked with a percentage. Overdoses would basically disappear because people would know exactly the quantities that they're getting, and it's that fluctuation that results in death. So you're avoiding the moral hazard of infringing on individual liberty while also making the products safer by uniform purity. You're also eliminating the black markets that form up like with prohibition in the 20s. Gangster culture selling liquor created the boom of rise in mafia, at the time. And
Yeah.
like you said, you could have a whole conversation on this, which we should at another point if you're interested.
Oh yeah. 100%, 100%. But um, yeah, I'm trying to segue out.
Sure. Do it up.
I'm trying to figure out how to do that. Um, but man, it's really fun being on your show, and I'm happy to come back on and talk about narcotics and deal with that can of worms. That is a can of worms though.
Big
It
can of
is.
worms. It's a major, you can't have a free society. You can't claim America's a free country while you're throwing nonviolent offenders in prison for simply possessing something that they should have the right to put in their body, even if we all think it's stupid or unsafe. You can go buy Drano and chug it if you want. What's the difference? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. But I tell you what, I think I've got supper ready out there. So
Sounds good, brother. We're at
I'm gonna
3
hop
hours,
on.
15 minutes. Let's wrap it up. Any closing comments you'd like to give before we close out the show?
Man, just let's keep the revolution alive. Head over to Hayes4House. .com.
Hayes4House.com.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. There's a Facebook group. If any of y'all are still on Facebook, it's called Voters of. Oh, you could probably pull this up, right? Are you
Yeah.
still on Facebook?
Yep. Voters of
Oklahoma CD4 Uncensored.
CD-4 or CD4 with no dash?
No dash.
No dash. Voters of Oklahoma CD4 Uncensored. Here we go. Voters
Yeah,
of
so
Oklahoma CD4 Uncensored.
by the way, what that is up there, if you scroll up to that right there, that thing, that is a watermelon because Oklahoma, uh, maybe you don't know, but Oklahoma's kind of known for watermelons.
Oh,
And
really? I didn't know that. It's like a
yeah,
Minecraft watermelon.
and yeah, well, as it turns out, watermelons are also easier to carve than pumpkins. So we've started a tradition of
Genius, dude.
we carve watermelons instead of pumpkins, and as you see, they're yeah, that's a little bit scary. The lights aren't even on. Yeah.
That's cool, man. You put a light inside that, it glows red. Oh man, That's really cool. That's clever, man. I just sent you a friend request too.
Oh, good, good. But yeah, they and they don't rot out as fast, which you probably don't have a problem with. But in the Oklahoma heat,
Oh
late
yeah, it's
October,
nasty get down. I bet there just
yeah,
rot the
you don't,
hell.
you don't want a pumpkin on your porch with that watermelon. It kind of holds up a little bit better. Anyway, this here is a group. I do videos on there every so often. They're pretty unscripted, candid. I talked about why price gouging, why price gouging laws are bad, in one of my latest videos.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's pretty hardcore. I don't know that I should have opened it up to the public for the sake of getting votes, but hey, for those that do support me, this is a good group to join.
Right.
And
So
we have,
it's like, sorry, go ahead.
well, it's open to everybody. It's really just a public square down here, and there's establishment people, there's Democrats, there's one or two live real socialists that are in the group that we go back and forth with all the time. So, yeah, that's interesting, but it goes back to that First Amendment idea of, and I guess I'll say this to wrap up, is that the First Amendment didn't just happen one day. Kind of
Right.
like with the Revolution. The First Amendment came about because there was a culture that appreciated discussion and open dialogue and hearing other ideas and having an intellectual debate rather than bashing people over the head, right? And if that culture, it's that culture that gave us the First Amendment, and I argue that it's that culture that preserves the First Amendment. And if we lose that culture, I'm afraid that we're going to lose the First Amendment as well. So
Yep.
we have a group open to all ideas, and trying to save that culture so that we can save our rights.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah. So there you go.
Good stuff. All right, everybody, make sure to check out HAYES4house.com. That's Hayes, the number 4house.com. Toss $1 over to Andrew Hayes, Republican in Oklahoma. Help him get in the House. This is the type of candidate we need. He's got my full endorsement of Common Censored, and Lord Sterling. It's been a pleasure having you, man. I'm pleased to meet your acquaintance, and we'll look forward to having you back sometime soon. You're pretty much welcome anytime you want. If you want to pop on, if there's some story you want to discuss, anything like that, door's open, brother.
All right. Hey, I appreciate you. I don't know how to
Likewise.
log off. That's
all right.
That's probably my problem. I'm trying to see myself out, you guys.
Sounds good. I'll put it back to just me on screen for the outro. Yeah. And Mr. Hayes, I salute you. Thanks for stepping up, pushing the values of liberty and individual rights. I appreciate your contribution to the discussion and the dialogue, and you're a role model for others to step up and get involved. It's time to get up, stretch, and get in the game, people. This is the big game that we're in right now, and we need more men in the arena. I commend you for being a man in the arena, sir. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, guys.
You're welcome. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. Hope you guys enjoyed our discussion with Andrew Hayes. Make sure to check out his website, hayes4house.com. We are going to wrap it up here, and we'll be back tomorrow with all kinds of clown world chaos to break down with all of you. Loki happens to be here with me, and she wanted to say hello, so here she is. You want to say something, Tweet? You want to say something? I'll put the microphone right here. It's your opportunity. It's your opportunity, Tweet. If you don't use your voice, you could lose it. No, she doesn't give a shit. Oh, yes, thank you. A big shout out to Mr. Hayes. Thanks for being here. Mandy, thanks. Glad you enjoyed the show today. Mixing it up a little bit with a congressional candidate for U.S. House in Oklahoma's District 4. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. That's the type of dude we need in government right there. Andrew Hayes, big props to him for stepping up and trying to make it happen. Even if it's not a successful bid, he's still affecting the dialogue, and every action that we take ripples throughout eternity. Ideas are bulletproof, and every time you speak an idea out loud, it's like bullets being launched into space-time that remain long after we're shuffled into our graves. So thank you guys for being here today for this episode 148. Candidate Andrew Hayes, woman convicted for citing statistics in Germany. That's right, facts equal hate speech if they don't like the facts. Thank you guys for being here. Make sure to join us Monday through Friday, 6:30-ish p.m. Eastern Time. Use hashtag CommonCensored when you share the show on X, where you can find us at _CommonCensored. Sorry for the little bit less interactivity with the comments today than usual, but there's just so much to talk about. We just had to keep it going. So thank you guys for joining us. If you want to support the show, you can head on over to commoncensored.locals.com. Sign up for $5 a month because you don't want little Loki to go hungry, do you? I'm guilt tripping you. You don't want to starve the birdie, do you? commoncensored.locals.com. Sign up for $5 a month if you want. Less than the price of a cup of coffee. What the hell am I multitasking? Getting all discombobulated. You can also head on over to Amazon.com and pick up one of our books, our eponymous Common Censored, where we took common sense and redacted it into oblivion, rendering all the substance null. But begging the question, can a revolution against tyranny even happen when the public commons is censored and suppressed and people can't dialogue openly? If you want to know what the book actually says, you can also pick up Common Sense First Edition Revived. I'm going to do some giveaways soon. Incentivize joining up with the locals. I'll do a contest where have everybody I got to set up a Cash App or something too, Mandy. I discovered that Rumble rants, if you do a Rumble rant from an iOS or Android device, they charge 30% on top of Rumble's 20%. So let's say Alpha Boss drops a $50 bomb. Only 25 gets to me from iOS or Android Rumble rants, which I think is a little bit abusive for iOS and Android to insert themselves into the chain of custody of those dollars over there. Right? Right? Yeah. Alpha Boss, I only discovered that like 3 days ago, which is brutal. So I'm going to set up some type of third-party donation system, and I'm going to have my phone sitting right here during broadcast. So if somebody donates with a comment, I'll read your comments on the air, but that way we won't have, money being embezzled through Apple and Android or whatever. Yeah, Mama Mac, pretty brutal, right? So I apologize, Alpha Boss, that part of your money got stolen on the way to me. I was surprised too to discover that. So I'll set up something, Cash App, Venmo, or whatever. I'll make a card that I can pop up on screen that has everything listed. But thank you guys for your support. I will make a Cash App and do that as soon as possible. I'm also going to make some merch. It's just like once the lights go off, I'm just like, ugh. Like I don't want to do anything. So I'll set up various things. I'll start putting together merch over the weekend. I'm going to go on a rampage and put together a bunch of shirts and stuff like that. So I'll get a bunch of things put together. I'll order a bunch of books, and I'll say like, join up for the commoncensored.locals.com, sign up for $5 a month. And at the end of every week, I'll pick like a winner randomly. Maybe I'll do like, write everybody down on pieces of paper and pull it out of a hat live. I could use my my elf hat which is still dangling on my mic from over the Christmas time period. We could pull names out of a hat, and I'll give away books to our supporters of the show. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed Mr. Hayes out of Oklahoma, the kind of candidate we need to turn this country around and put us back on track. Loki also says thanks and for being here, and she says, thanks for joining us, everybody. I don't know. Such a dork. Use hashtag CommentCensored when you share the show. Links will be down there in the description. Afterwards, don't forget to check out alpllama.com too. alpllama.com for all of your herbal tincture needs. If you got an ailment, they got a remedy. And it's all natural and won't get you drunk in the recommended doses. So thanks in advance for checking out alpllama.com. Mama Mac and Co. over there holding it down. Thanks again to Mama Mac for all your help behind the seams. Seams? Did I ripping at the seams? My language capacities. That's right, Alpha Boss. Valar Morgulis. Valar Dohyrtus. My friend, always good to see you. We love our dork. That's what the female whales say, Mama Mac. If you know, you know. Even you have Venmo. I'll get all set up and make it easier. Donating to Common Censored is like pulling teeth, apparently. So I've got to make it easier on all of you and myself by making it easier. So thanks everybody for joining us today. I will look forward to coming back to you tomorrow with more of our typical programming for Hump Day.
Hump Day!
And we will cover a whole glut of news tomorrow that we didn't get to today. But it was great talking to Andrew Hayes, wishing him the absolute best. Thanks again for being here, everybody. I love you guys. And make sure to smash that like button on your way out. We'll be back tomorrow for Hump Day. But until then, think for yourself. Question authority. 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 Think for yourself. And smash that like button, everybody. Catch you on the flip side.